Good morning and welcome. My name is Jane Dolan. I know you know that, but there might be one or two people here that are picking it up. And I'm the president of the board. I'm happy to see you all here. I welcome my board members, flood board staff, in-person folks. I'd like to see faces and have that communication at breaks. Glad you're here. But we will have some who will attend online because that's what is working for them. And I will say I'm delighted to have Fresh Air here handling the audio and visual aspects. So thank you for that. Please know our meetings are recorded. They're also transcribed. So I will now ask if anyone who wants to be logged in has been admitted. Mr. Knapp says yes, so we'll do that. So I will call the meeting to order of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board on Friday, June 27th, 2025. Our first action is to establish a quorum and attendance, so I will ask our go-to guy to call the roll. Mr. Knapp.
Member Andrews.
Present.
Online.
Member Bosler. Member Griego.
Here.
Member Countryman.
Present.
Secretary Johnson.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Vice President Valines. Here. President Dolan.
I'm here. I missed somebody. That confirms we do have a quorum. All members are attending. There are 6 here in the room, and 1 is not feeling well, so we're going to hear from her, and she'll hear from us online. That's Ms. Andrews. Joining all of us here on the dais, I think I pronounced that right, I'm never sure, is our executive officer. To my left, Chris Leaf. To my right is John Knapp, who monitors all things and really takes care of us for all the paperwork. We have Chief Engineer Michael Wright here. Andrea Buckley's not with us today. She gets a day off. And our attorney, Jeet Dua, has arrived, so welcome. Our first item today is for Executive Officer to provide any announcements or introductions. Mr. Leaf?
I have one announcement.
Okay.
Tony Johnson has left the board. Tony has been a valued member of the board staff for the past 5 years, joining us in June 2020 as an office technician. She quickly rose through the ranks, promoting to staff service analyst in 2022, and then to associate governmental program analyst in 2024, reflecting her excellent skills and work ethic. Throughout her tenure, Tony made lasting contributions to the board, supporting timekeeping, equipment management, procurement, personnel actions, recruitment, and training. She played a key role in streamlining internal processes, and she served as a mentor to newer team members, and she always had a smile on her face.
Yeah.
During her time with us, Tony also celebrated major milestones in her personal life. She married, purchased her first home, and recently welcomed her first child. We thank Tony for her dedication, professionalism, and the many ways she helped strengthen our operations. She will be deeply missed by all of us at the board, and we wish her the best of luck.
Well, I'm sorry to see her go. A new member of the family might have been part of that, so please communicate our thanks.
Okay, we will. Thank you.
I think that's all right that we do that. Is that right, board? Yeah, she's, we hate to see good people go, but wish her well. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to just do a very brief rundown of the agenda, just to be sure that if there's any rearrangement that can be done. It's just an overview, more introduction. It comes at the time that we have that agenda item. So we've done 1, 2, 3. 4 is the minutes, but they're postponed. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Item 5 is identified as consent items. We put that on the agenda even when there isn't anything, and today there isn't anything on the consent agenda. Item 6, I see some folks who know what this is. This is public comment for an item for matters that are related to our jurisdiction, but are not specifically on today's agenda. I just want to remind you all that we are welcome to take your information in writing, because we do know how to read, and we do read. And when you do talk, you're limited to 3 minutes. For this and other items, if you wish to speak and you're in the room, I really appreciate the card, but it's not necessary, but it means I am going to call on you first. And then we go to people online. And then if someone else wants to stand up in the room. Item number 6 is a legislative update. I understand it's a written submittal that our executive officer puts together for us, but we can ask questions when we get to that if we want. Item 8 is a placeholder. We always put a placeholder for the Army Corps of Engineers, but they're not going to do anything today before us. I don't even know if any of them are here, because I don't see any camo. Item 10 are items of the Department of Water Resources, and there are 4. One is a submittal. There's a briefing on the plan update, requested action regarding Delta levy subvention, and what I think will be a very interesting and amazing presentation regarding an emergency response in the Delta. I skipped 9. Whoa. 8 was the placeholder, 9 is board items, and there's 1. Mr. Harvey is going to give us a presentation of the Flood System Improvement Branch. Did you raise your hand and say, what about me? Okay. Item 11, staff reports that are there and can be discussed if possible. Item 12 is for board members to give comments of activities and committees. Item 13 is to provide a list of upcoming meetings, dates, and locations that sometimes change. Item 14 is set to be a closed session. Is there one, Mr. Dua? There is none, so there is no closed session. So after all that, there'll be an adjournment. It's always a challenge to understand how a meeting occurs, but I want you all to know that there might be a time that I'll call for a break, and I don't know when that is, and I don't know if there will be one, but I just want to let you know that. So there we are. Get rid of that. Go to the agenda. Any changes to the agenda in there from? Nobody's doing that. Okay. Take care of that. Minutes are postponed. No consent. Public comment. This is the fastest time we've come to that. I have some cards here, and I will call them in the order they were given to me. Mr. Don Murphy. And then after that will be Nancy Nistern. Good morning. Good morning. I was looking over there for some reason. You're right there. Good morning.
Should know this by now. Okay, Ms. Dolan.
You're right, Mr. Murphy. And I know you're speaking for a neighbor.
Well, I'm speaking for myself right now, but I'll.
Yourself first,
So I
okay.
get 6 minutes, right?
3 plus 3.
Okay, I'm a boat dock owner. My boat dock was moved for the Erosion 2 contract, and I've been waiting patiently, I've lost my patience, on when I can return my boat dock. I understand it's drawing closer to the day where the Army's going to bless this, and so can you give me any update on that?
I cannot.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't ask questions. All right, that's my comment.
Right behind you is someone in a blue shirt and tie that
Okay.
will communicate with you.
All right, very good. Now I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbor, Billy Ann Groza. I have her permission to speak on her behalf. You're probably aware that the city has plans to pave the top of the levee and build a bike trail up and down from Garcia Bend Park to Zacharias Park. I'm curious about the permitting process. I'm assuming that the flood board has to approve and permit that activity. So the question is, the city does not yet have the right-of-way access to somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 properties. Do they have to have the right-of-way access prior to submitting the application to the flood board? Now, you ought to be able to answer that one, right?
I'm not an attorney.
Oh. Well,
Mr. G, do you care to say anything?
We can have staff
Okay, thank you.
respond to him on the sidebar. Staff will speak to you about that.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, next up, Nancy Nistern. Or was it to be Mr., all right, you get to go
Whatever you
first.
want. We'd love to
I
please.
feel that way about you as
Thank
well.
you.
So I got your name, so you're there. Good
Thank you.
morning.
Thank you very much for the time again to make a public comment. Today I want to talk about the EIS, EIR. What's the point of writing or reviewing it? It is to reveal environmental impacts and its consequences and plans for mitigation, and provides the opportunity for us to do something about it. I've been reviewing the listing summary of effects and mitigation measures for the proposed action. on the Contract 3B area, and I'm concerned that there are 8 environmental effects which are stated as significant but unavoidable, unavoidable. There's effects on the environment, transportation, recreation, aesthetics, vegetation, and wildlife, which we know about. There's also one that affects people's welfare, and that's called the noise and vibration section. And there are two findings there. You know already that we are upset with the extent of devastation to the riverbank, the wildlife, vegetation, and these are included in the unavoidables. The idea that there is nothing the Corps can do to mitigate damage indicates a lack, I think, of creative thought. Shifting to smaller footprint with targeted solutions and less rocks would help. Consider a variety of bioengineering remedies. We see no attempt to include the Corps engineering with nature, expertise in the designs, nor was there a review of what is being done on the riverbanks of wild and scenic rivers or other natural habitat areas throughout the U.S. Our environmental effect directly, this particular environmental effect, noise and vibration, can be damages to people and other living beings. It is the second largest environmental cause of health problems just after the impact of air pollution. Excessive noise has been proven to have significant adverse physical and psychological responses, including but not limited to permanent hearing loss, high blood pressure, heart disease, sleep disturbance, stress, and even strokes. Noise also harms mental health and diminishes quality of life. The noise levels and durations of the Contract 3B are unacceptable. The Corps is aware that sensitive receptors include residences located as close as 25 feet from the hall and construction areas. It exposes all of us, families, seniors, young people, and beloved pets to serious noise risks. Nearby the local Larchmont Park, which is a staging area, it's right next to a Title I elementary school. The Corps knowingly opens itself to legal action filed by those whose property or health has deteriorated as a direct result of heavy-handed construction. The overwhelming dedication of the Corps to use riprap, trenches, and tiebacks, requiring multiple uses of large equipment in the mountain of rocks, is an overkill in our book. We appreciate you giving this attention and acting as we know you can as the guardians of our environment. Thank you very much.
Mr. Spalding? And then Julie.
Okay, good morning, President Dolan, board members, Mr. Leaf. Thanks again for another chance to talk about Contract 3B. Pete Spalding from American River Trees. When the Corps started working on Contracts 1 and then Contracts 2 in the River Park area, they received a lot of phone calls, got a lot of complaints. They held community meetings. They knew they had a problem. When the Corps and DWR started getting requests for public comment extensions in January 2024 on the draft supplemental agreements, they knew they had a problem. When 170 and 190 people attended the January 10th and January 16th virtual public meetings and submitted hundreds of questions and comments in the chat, the Corps and DWR knew they had a problem. When the Corps and DWR received 964 comment letters, they knew they had a bigger problem. Maybe half were form letters, but half were not. When is the last time they received this many public comments on a project that had zero publicity? When they started seeing articles almost every month in Inside Sacramento and heard the public comments we were making at board meetings here, SAFCA and county supervisors meetings, they knew the problem was growing. And what did the project sponsors do? Instead of getting out and talking to the community like they did in River Park, they withdrew to their fortresses and tried to shut everybody out, trying to respond to all the public comments they had already received, hoping we would go away. On May 23rd, last month, almost 200 people attended a 6-hour history lesson on a Friday before the Memorial Day weekend. American River Trees asked for 20 minutes on the agenda. President Dolan gave us 25 and let 2 additional speak, but 22 speakers were left hanging. Bigger problem. On June 13th, American River Trees had about 10 people prepared to present comments. We coordinated those comments just like we did for the April 8th, 2024 Amibera Community Conversation. to avoid duplication of questions and to keep to the 3-minute limit. A total of 25 people actually spoke in person and more by Zoom. They spoke eloquently, they spoke knowledgeably, and passionately. There are still many in the Sacramento area that are unaware of the project and the magnitude of its impact. The problem's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's not going away. Last week, I individually emailed Central Valley Flood Board staff, DWR staff, and Army Corps staff requesting meetings of 60 minutes to discuss concerns and alternatives. Just 60 minutes. Only your flood board staff agreed to meet with us. It may seem like all this is being piled on the flood board, but you are one of the project partners. The problems were created by the Corps, SAFCA, and DWR. Now it's up to you to solve them. As a CEQA lead review agency, you have the opportunity and the responsibility to solve them. And you solve problems by talking, listening, discussing, listening, sharing, listening some more, negotiating, listening even more, and compromising. It takes longer, but it works. So let's take some extra time on Contract 3B, make the B in Contract 3B stand for the best damn project ever, the poster child for working with the community, working with nature. Be the hero. Thank you to your staff for agreeing to meet with us, and thank you for not retreating into a fortress.
Thank you. Julie Gable. And then Brenda Gustin. Don't see her. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Julie Gable, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak with you or share my comments today. I would also say that I watched the entire meeting on recording because I wasn't able to be here on June 13th, and I commend you for the meeting that you ran. I think the community provided incredible and important input to you. Both some of it is emotive and about how we feel about the Lower American River. And my topic that I'm speaking on today and my comments are directed to the American River Commons Future Project and particularly Contract 3B. I have shared with Jonah Knapp a copy of the letter that I actually submitted in writing, but I know because yes, that's it. I know because we've been looking at those documents, and I say that I'm speaking as an individual, but as I became aware of this issue, I've obviously met other folks that are working on this, and I've volunteered or provided my time consistently to this project. I've looked at thousands and thousands of pages, and I'm still finding new things. But one of the most important things, even though I wrote you a letter, that I just was a jaw drop for me and I can't get past, and I think it's incredibly important, is when you look at what the performance assurance assessments were for Contract 3B, and they haven't fallen away or changed. What's changed is one of the tables that I gave you a copy of has disappeared from the, some of the materials, but the text that I provided you has not. And what that tells you is that we do not have 200-year flood protection from this work. And the public and myself and others have been telling you this is going to be extremely devastating to the parkway. And in particular, when you hit the area of Howe Avenue, Watt Avenue Bridge, and above, you are in some of the most environmentally sensitive and highly used parts of the parkway. And that parkway by itself as an entire wild and scenic river has been measured. It has a 364, or we'll round up to $365 million value every year, and that was measured some time ago, so it's probably higher. And the fisheries that are associated to it, we have salmon and steelhead that are some of the endangered and threatened species, as well as many other species that are there. But they are tied to a $1.4 billion industry for California, and our salmon fishery has been closed now for the 3rd year in a row. And the parkway itself receives over 5 million visits. But again, the numbers that keep going back to me is this 200-year flood protection that we don't have, because I am aware that the state has set goals and there is legislation that we are supposed to be working to that. We're doing a cost-sharing model with the federal government because we can't do it on our own. And so dismiss or remove or polish to what it is, change your language to sound like you're doing what we're asking from the public, but we are not there. And it is really important that the board dig into this, that you be vigorous about it. And my request would be to look very, very closely if you have any difficulty finding these materials, because sometimes I have to spend another hour and 2 hours to go back and find where did I find this again. Please reach out to me. I'd be happy to share with you where I found it, but there is repetition for it. But it does say in the text, and so if you've got the page that's highlighted, I believe it's the third page, and I apologize, I didn't put page numbers on me for my letter. But it is the section, now it's dropped into 1.44 levy overtopping, and where I believe one of the places that you would find that is the ARCF GRR December 15th, May 2016 update document. But there is also earlier placements of this data and the other table. And our current in a 200-year event, or 160,000 cubic feet per second that we talk about, I'm treating those as equivalent, and somebody might argue some nuances of that. But on the north and south shores respectively.
Is she a minute over?
Oh, I'm sorry, am I getting close?
Yeah, you're getting close.
Okay.
Actually, you're over. But
I apologize, I'll try and wrap it up, is 45% and 47%. 45% for the south and 47% in the north, with no project at all. After the project, after this devastation, the moonscape, what people used as words for abomination, the comparisons that we've seen down at Paradise Beach and what we are still seeing in the documents that we're aware of, is that it only raises to 57 and 60%. And when we press the Corps, and by the way, I submitted formal comments, and they I wouldn't say purposely, they played very, I was in sales, by the way, they played very careful line to say what their goal was, and it was to move 160,000 cubic feet for the ARCF, but they completely ignored my specific request and comments for performance assurances and the data that back that up for contract 3B, 4A, and 4B, and other questions that I asked. So they've been unanswered, and we're at that tipping point. You know, the Corps already issued their record of decision. I'm sure they're pressing you to move. This is too important. We need you to do something, and it may be extraordinary. Maybe you've never done it before as a board, but we need you to pause, pull contract 3B from the EIS, SES, EIR. I'm not going to get this right. The EIS, EIR, and SEIS, SEIR, and step back and rethink and rework this project. And so thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out if there are anything that are questions or materials that I can help with in future.
Okay, we have your comments. You gave us your letter. So
Thank you.
Thanks. You got some time, too. Brenda Guston? I didn't see you. There you are. Good morning.
I'm short. Good morning, and I'll be short.
I know.
Thank you for allowing me to comment again on the American River Common Features Project. Section 4.1C of Exhibit B, which is only 627 pages of the 10,000 pages of the final SEIR-SEIS, states, the short-term significant impacts of riparian habitat loss would be minimized by retaining and protecting trees where possible, but the impact would remain significant and unavoidable because of the extent of required riparian vegetation removal. I would like someone from this board, or DWR, or both, to define what the Army Corps means when they state that the level of destruction is significant and unavoidable, and exactly their definition of short-term and long-term. Is short-term 1, 10, 20, or more years? The terminology significant and unavoidable is used 242 times in Exhibit B alone. Failure to disclose the full extent of significant and unavoidable impacts upon the environment is just one of the CEQA non-compliant concerns we have. There are 45 mitigation measures contained in the final report that are either promises to conduct studies in the future or are generic boilerplate commitments with no supporting analysis. The American River Common Features Project, as you know, encompasses 7 areas. We respectfully request that you, our local representative, focus your attention on the work proposed in this project by setting aside contracts 3B, 4A, and 4B. In past floods that we've learned a lot about from the historical data, this area is held strong. Let's proceed with the work that is clear and non-controversial in the other areas and employ this staff, the Bank Protection Working Group, and the Technical and Resource Advisory Committee to minimize impacts on the environment with more bioengineering techniques. Wade Crowfoot, who you know leads the California Natural Resource Agency, stewards California forests, rivers, coastline, and wildlife. He advises Governor Newsom on environmental issues and oversees billions of dollars of public investment to protect people and nature. Last month, he shared that his personal motto is working to help people and nature thrive together as one. He chose to quote poet Gary Snyder on this building, "Nature is not a place to visit, it is home." Let's protect the 500,000 heads on pillows and protect nature, our home. Let's slow down, work together, and do better. Maya Angelou once said, when we know better, we do better. We know better, so let's do better together. Thank you for your attention on this.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised? Candace Hines, I believe you put your hand up. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Okay.
Can't see you,
Morning.
but yes.
Okay. Can I go ahead and begin?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Hello, my name is Candace Hines. I submitted a more detailed comment letter to the board last night regarding the American River Contract 3B project. I actually followed up with an update this morning. I thought I'd just point out some highlights, but I hope you'll have the opportunity to more thoroughly review my written letter later. So I've heard the argument that since the Army Corps and other groups have hosted numerous meetings and have spent a long time on project planning, I'm doing air quotes, that their decisions must be good. This is what's called an invalid deductive argument type of fallacy. While good decisions can result from these conditions, so too can misinformed, biased, and inadequate decisions. Please question and cross-check the planning team's decisions. It's been frustrating hearing the Corps refer to trees that they don't need to remove as protected or saved. It appears this is used as a tool to sell the project and downplay the extent of the impact. Doesn't 685 trees removed sound so much nicer when the next statement is 1,500 trees saved? However, there were no improvements made to the designs that warrant the Corps' claim that they are saving these trees. The saved trees just simply didn't need to be removed. Claiming they're saving 1,500 trees is like a doctor claiming he cured 1,500 patients who didn't have illnesses in the first place. Please be aware of this deception. Times are changing. We're in an era of adopting policies that work with nature because we've seen time and time again that attempting to conquer nature doesn't have high long-term success rates. Conquering begets more conquering. Interestingly, the larger umbrella of the Army Corps has jumped on this eco-conscious trend with the launching of their Engineering with Nature initiative. However, the Sacramento Corps Office seems to be resisting the movement towards working with nature rather than against it. This is no longer acceptable. Defending and justifying lazy designs is time and effort better spent on bringing their strategies into the 21st century. American River Trees has obtained tree survey data from SafeGov via a PRA request that proves there are at least 37 heritage oak trees in the Contract 3B area marked as not protected, as opposed to the 3 claimed by the Corps at the last 2 board meetings. And I have sent evidence for that, an update on that this morning. This critical discrepancy raises much concern about the validity and quality of the rest of the report and the associated project decisions. Contract 3B's flood risk and the rush for completing the work has been grossly over-exaggerated. I state some points of evidence for this in my written comment. Please don't let the Corps' desire to stay on schedule take precedence over getting the job done right. Finally, the Contract 3 Contract 3B report is not CEQA compliant and questions loom about its quality, completeness, and accuracy. Please pull Contract 3B from CEQA certification. It's not ready for prime time. It's in desperate need of extensive review, repair, revision, and reduction of its environmental, economic, and social impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another hand up here. I'm not going to say this right. Dirk Ruthroff. You can unmute yourself and speak. Your first name is Dirk.
Yes, you did it pretty well. I've heard a lot worse than that rendition of my name.
All right, thank you. You may speak.
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dirk Ruthroff, and I'm here as a concerned citizen in support of American River trees. I want to urge the board to not approve the Contract 3B portion of the American River Common Features project, at least in its current form. The final environmental impact reports fail to meet core requirements under the California Environmental Quality Act, which is also described as CEQA. And these are requirements, of course, that the board is bound to uphold. CEQA is clear. Agencies must not approve a project as proposed if there are feasible alternatives or mitigation measures that would substantially reduce environmental impacts. In this case, this just has not happened in this whole process. Promised evaluations, and I have to stress that, promised evaluations of less destructive alternatives such as bioengineering and limited cobble placement were never completed, despite prior commitments to do so in 2016 and recommendations to do so by the US EPA. Under CEQA, the lead agency must explain its reasons for selecting or rejecting each alternative, and the analysis must include enough detail to enable meaningful evaluation, public participation, and informed decision-making. Even if alternatives are more costly, or even if they don't fully meet every project goal, they must be considered if they would reduce environmental harm. There is no evidence in the record, that at least that I could find, of meaningful engineering feasibility study of bioengineering alternatives as promised, and no justification for the dismissal of less harmful alternatives. Simply put, the analysis of alternatives in the SEIR is inadequate under CEQA guidelines, section 15126.6. Finally, the law requires recirculation of the EIR when new feasible alternatives that could reduce impacts are identified but not adopted. That threshold has not been met here, yet the agencies are pushing forward anyway without the necessary revisions. It's important to remember, very important to remember, that CEQA is not merely a suggestion, it's a legal standard. And I respectfully urge you as the board to reject approval of this portion of the project, 3B, until the document is revised and recirculated in full compliance with CEQA. Thank you for your opportunity to speak.
You're welcome, and thank you. Are there any other hands that are raised? I'm advised there are none. Is there anyone else in the audience who has a comment related to our jurisdiction but is not an item on the agenda? I have some new glasses, so I have to look differently. I don't see anyone, so we can move on. We do appreciate the public's comments and the time that you take. I know you don't appreciate the way we do it. Item number 9. What? Well, you always say it's just submitted. Okay, I will. I checked that. That takes care of public comment. Thank you, Mr. Leaf. Legislative updated, item number 7. It's a written report that our executive officer prepares. Do you have any comments you wish to raise? He says no. Any board members want to ask questions regarding this report? I appreciate that you do it. Even the dense language from possible votes. Anyone in the audience want to talk about the executive officer's legislative report? Staff doesn't dare raise their hand. Any hands up? Okay, thank you. Good reading as always. Item under 8, Army Corps of Engineers, nothing. At least in this room. Okay, now can I go to 9?
Absolutely.
You could do this, Jane, do it right. Item number 9 is board items. Get ready, come up. Mr. Harvey, you're still sitting, okay. Mr. Greg Harvey, board staff of the Flood System Improvement Branch, is going to be the MC of a presentation here on this branch of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, an important branch. We'd like to hear from you about what's going on and what's planned. I see some logistical trade-off here of
Yes.
laptops. All right. Mr. Harvey, good morning.
Jonah, are you gonna run the slides for me? Oh, thank you. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board, Executive Officer Chris Leaf. My name is Greg Harvey. I'm the manager of the Flood System Improvement Branch here at the board, and I'm going to give a brief overview of our staff activities report for this month and kind of highlight some projects that we've been working on over the past few months. So next slide, please. So this is the small branch. It's a little smaller than the operations branch, but Selva Mahan on the left, he's got his Sacramento levee section, Travis, Hugo, and Karina, and he's going to give a overview of the work that's been going on in the Central Valley in his section. Mike Salazzo and Dustin Sanowski are senior engineer specialists, and they have a ton of projects under their purview, so they've been a huge help to the branch. And then Zubair Dosu, he'll be giving a presentation on the deferred encroachment compliance section, and he's got Jeremiah and Richard helping him out as staff level engineers.
Being very shy and not standing up.
Next slide, please. So I'll just go over a couple of the federal projects and studies that we've been working on. Some of the system improvement projects. There's some upcoming permits hopefully will come before the board for approval here shortly. And some of the other programs in our branch, and then Selva and Zubair will give their respective section presentations. Next slide. So I'm going to briefly touch on the Marysville Ring Levee project that board member Griego is very familiar with in her backyard. It's been going on for a long time. A lot of it's completed. Over 7 miles of levee improvements have been going on there. The West Sacramento Levee Improvement Project, and then also the Lower San Joaquin, which President Dolan gave some remarks at earlier this year. Next slide. So the Marysville Ring Levee project, like I said, has been going on for many years, and it's coming to a close. Phases 2A North and 2A South and Phase 3B are completed. The Union Pacific Railroad Gap down in the southern portion, a little part in yellow, and then the north area cutoff wall up in the upper right. Those are still working out some design issues right now. And then Phase 4A, which they call the finger levee, that portion of the project, Caltrans actually is doing that right now. They are widening Highway 70 and addressing the seepage concerns, and hopefully we'll have a permit come before the board here shortly for that. Next slide. So these are just some pictures of the completed cutoff wall construction on Phase 3B, which was on the right-hand side of that map. Can you go the 2 slides back, please? Yes, I thought it was Phase 3, but I guess it's Phase 2B. Just clarify. Next slide, and then next slide. West Sacramento project. So this project, the design agreement and the project partnership agreement has been approved, and they're working on about 18 1,000 linear feet of seepage cutoff wall and seepage berms along the Sacramento River west levee in this portion. And construction is about to begin in 2028. And then also part of this project, next slide, is on the eastern part of the Yola bypass. So the Yola bypass east levee north section and that part in blue, then the south section, those are completed. Some rock slope protection on the south portion, that's a temporary fix from some high water events. They're working on a permanent design. And then some of the improvements on the north section there. Next slide. So the Lower San Joaquin project in Stockton, this kicked off earlier this year. So on April 18th, there was a great groundbreaking ceremony down there, and President Dolan and other members, elected officials, and Carla Nemeth gave some opening remarks, and it was a good time. Over 1 mile of levee cutoff wall is going to be constructed here to protect those houses and many folks down there. And after the improvements to this levee, this will be included in the state plan of flood control, which it is not currently. Next slide. And just some more pictures. The folks with shovels are the ones that actually gave some presentations, and I had to put that one up on the right there for President Dolan.
You could have left some others off.
Next slide.
It was a very windy day.
It was. Some of the system improvement projects we have a lot of those going on, and Dustin and Mike have a lot under their belt. The Mid-Valley Phase 3 Site 11 project is coming here shortly, hopefully before the board for consideration of a permit. Black Rascal Creek, which protects the city of Merced. Their city of Merced is working on some last minute comments from the Corps. Hopefully that'll come later this year. And then, like I said, the State Route 70 expansion of part of the finger levee of the Marysville project will be coming shortly. Next slide. So some of the projects under construction. So we have a few pictures of the Yola Bypass salmonid habitat restoration project of the Fish Passage facility, some improvements to the Fremont Weir, and then also the new Fish Passage facility. And then the Tudor flood risk reduction project. President Dolan also gave some opening remarks there, and so I've got some photos of that. Next slide.
You'll want to say that the Congress member and the Assembly member and all boards of supervisor members of 2 counties were there. I was a minor part.
So these are some pictures of the Fish Passage facility that's being constructed right now. It's almost done, but this project's been going on for a while. Upgrades to the Fremont Weir. So next slide. And then this is the project that President Dolan was just referring to. The Feather River West Levee Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project. Next slide. This is completing 40 plus miles of levee improvements on the Feather River West Levee. And this last portion, about 1.5 miles, ties right into the Sutter Basin, Sutter Bypass. So it's.
I think it's worth saying that this was local effort that did this, and local funding, which is why showing the audience would have been helpful. It was a lot of very excited folks who had put a lot of work into this happening.
Yes, thank you. And this, when we were out there, they had degraded the levee down 1/3 and made a really large working platform, and they're constructing the cutoff wall right now. So it's a great achievement. Next slide. So some of the projects that have been completed that are not finalized yet, I know that the Smith Canal project we talked about in the past, and we gave some of our board members gave some comments there. The Mid-Valley project, sites 9 and 10, and the Bear River setback. So they're in various stages of closeout. Final operation and maintenance manual updates or construction completion documents, as-built. Southport project is one of those. Next slide. So just to highlight real quick, the adequate progress and safety element review is under the flood system improvement branch. And then some of the special projects, the designated floodway program, we're been working on that for a few years, and we just started a new task order and under our new contract that we got, and focusing on some areas in the San Joaquin that desperately need updating, where the rivers have meandered greatly, and we're trying to pair some groundwater recharge efforts in that area and maybe some other state initiatives like the 30 by 30 program. So that's ongoing. Delta Conveyance Project, they've been working on some comments on the EIR document for a while, and I think now they're starting to ramp up some initial designs of the intake structures. So that's starting to start back up. And then we do a lot of LMA reorganizations, and then we're part of the Silver Jackets program. Next slide. There you have it. Selva Mohan will talk about the Sacramento levee section. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for that, except for the photos. Board members have any questions? Have to learn to stand up straight. Questions? Okay. Mr. Selva Mohan.
Good morning. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Selva Mohan. I'm the manager of the Sacramento levee section. Today I'll be going over the projects the section is involved and provide an update that's been taking place over the last few months. Next slide. Before I do that, I want to introduce my staff. Karina Castro, Travis Comstock, Hugo Changes, wonderful staff, all are present here. Yes, they are sitting there. They are doing an amazing work, and that's helping the section achieve its own goals. Next slide. A brief presentation outline. I will go over the projects that we are working on. American River Common Features 2016 project, Natomas Basin project, and briefly touch on Folsom Dam Race project, and then we'll provide an operational matrix when it comes to permitting, enforcement, and inspection. Next slide. The first three bullets in the upper left corner shows the projects that are under design and construction. Again, ARCF 2016 project, Natomas Basin and Dam Race. Few projects in the Sacramento region are under closeout, VERDA 9699, JFP Folsom Joint Federal Project, South Sacramento County Streams Project, and Natomas Levee Improvement Program. These projects are shown on the map on the right side. Next slide. So first, briefly go over the status of the American River Common Features 2016 project. It has basically three elements. One, seepage stability improvements along the Sacramento River East Levee. The second is the erosion work along the Sac River and the American River. And the third one is Sacramento Weir and bypass widening. So this slide shows the current status of the Sacramento River East Levee seepage stability construction. As you can see on the table on the right side, the project was divided into multiple contracts, and contract 1 through 4 were already completed. And currently we are working on last contracts, contract 5 and 6, and it is scheduled for construction starting later part of this year and going all the way to 27. So we are working with the project team to make sure encroachments are removed from the project footprint, and then we are also working with homeowners and other entities to permit the reconstruction of the encroachments. We also perform a multiple field inspection to make sure encroachments are constructed per the permit conditions. Next slide. So this is the second element of the American River Common Features project, erosion improvements along the Sac River East Levee. As you can see the table on the right side, this project was divided into 4 contracts. Contract 1, Contract 2, and Contract 4 all were completed. And the last remaining contract, Contract 3, is slated for construction beginning next year, 26. And it will be a 2-year construction, so it will be completed in 2027. On the right, very far right, the impacted board docks are, shown there. Contract 2 had 4 board docks impacted, and then Contract 4 had about 9 board docks impacted. They were removed from the project footprint, leaving the piles in place, and then we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers to receive the final completion letter before we can work with the homeowners to let them, reattach the board docks. Next slide. Yes.
We've heard about the boat docks. Could you elaborate on what you're doing with the Corps right now to complete the process so the docks can be returned?
Right. So the construction was completed later part of the year, last year, and then the Corps was waiting for the stages to lower it so they can inspect the completed site. So somewhere around mid-May, they started scheduling the final inspection, and we did the final walkthrough with the Army Corps of Engineers and the design team and board staff early June. And then we, finalized that final walkthrough, and then now Corps is going back, and then they are working with the contractor to release them from liability of the contract, clauses, and then preparing the turnover letter. So we anticipate receiving the turnover letter for Contract 2 sometimes mid to late July, so a couple of weeks from now. And then soon as we receive that, we will be working with the homeowners to reattach their board docks.
That was Board Member Joe Countryman.
Yes.
Mr. Valines. Vice President Valines.
Mike Valines, board member, vice president. Are any of these our friend in the audience's
Yes.
boat dock?
Yes.
And so are you allowed to elaborate at all, or can you not, or can you just give him any guidance while you're going through this?
Mr. Don Murphy's, board dock is in Contract 2, and we did the final inspection, like I said, early June. And once we, receive the turnover letter from the Army Corps of Engineers, we will notify him, and then we will work with him to reattach the board docks. Just want to point out that, if the reattachment involves any new pile installation or new construction, new excavation, then they have to apply for a permit. But the majority of the cases, they don't need to do any excavation. So it's simply reattaching to the existing piles which are permitted. Thank you. So the picture in this slide, shows the board docks, that were removed, prior to construction starts. You can see the piles, little hard to see that, and the board docks. So what we did, working with the homeowners to remove those board docks from the project footprint, and we let the piles stay in place, so the contractor work around the piles and putting riprap. Next slide. So this slide, shows after the removal of the board dock, but prior to the Army Corps construction begins. So you can see the board docks all already removed, and the piles are standing there. Next slide. So this slide shows the current status after the riprap work is completed. So you can see, for example, on the lower right corner, piles are in the water, so they will bring back the board dock and reattach without interfering with any of the completed sections. Next slide. The third element of the American River Common Features 16 project is Sacramento Weir and Bypass widening. It's approximately 1,500 feet of widening the Sac Bypass and Sac Weir. Construction began in August 2023, and it's targeted to complete in 2027-28 timeline. Board staff, along with the Army Corps of Engineers, provided a very comprehensive informational briefing to the board 2 months back, April 25th. Next slide. So this picture again from that presentation taken back in April 25, showing the constructed features of the Sac Weir bypass the fish passage on the lower left side, and the bridge piers and walls piles caps are being constructed. Next slide. The next major project in the SAC region is going on is Natoma's Basin project. As you can see, the basin on the right side of the picture. The basin was divided into multiple reaches, reach A through I. Some of the reaches were completed construction, and some of them are being currently under design and construction. We are working really closely with the project team and utility owners, primarily private utility entities, PG&E, AT&T, CIMAD, Verizon, Zayo, those entities, to make sure their utility, lines and poles and everything are moved out of the project footprint, and we are permitting those, as applicable. Next slide. Few pictures of the utilities being relocated. Majority of them are power poles, utility poles, and underground lines. Next slide. The other major improvement project that's happening in the SAC region is the Folsom Dam Raise project. Similar to other civil works project, project partnership agreement was executed back in 2014, and then the project is currently under design and construction. We are closely working with the DWR and Army Corps of Engineers to receive updates and provide that information to the management and board members. The picture you are seeing is board member, countrymen, and along with other board staff, DWR team, and Army Corps of Engineers had a field tour on June 6. They are standing at the very top of the dam, looking downstream. It was a very wonderful field trip, really good discussion, taken place, and then great success. Yes.
If you're going to say my name for other things, I'm going to say Board Member Joe Countryman is in this photo.
Yes, he is right in the middle, yes. Thank you. Next slide. So just to orient what's happening there, Folsom Lake in the middle, the dikes are labeled counterclockwise starting from top left corners. You can see the dike 1 at the very top, and dike 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming down, and then right wing dam, and then the main dam and the tender gates in the middle where the American River comes, and then the left wing dam followed by dike 7, dike 8, and then finally Mayat called Mormon Island Auxiliary Dam. So construction is happening in multiple areas. The tour took place somewhere along dike 6, right wing dam, and obviously the main dam. So the pictures I'm going to show you in the next slide is taken at dike 6 and looking right wing dam, and also one from the main dam. So here is the few pictures taken on the left side. The dike 6 flood wall construction was taking place. We had a real good discussion with the inspection team, design team, to understand what's actually happening there. The picture on the top right side is looking on east from dike 6 area, the right wing dam, and then the lower picture shows looking downstream from the top of the dam. Amazing work is happening. We may do another field inspection because board member Joe Countryman is really interested in this project, and so I will work with him to schedule one more inspection. Next slide. So here is a summary of operational elements beginning of this year, what we did in terms of permitting, enforcement, and inspection. Again, these are related to utility relocations, reconstruction of encroachments from the construction area. We have issued 9 permits, and we are currently processing about 26 permits, and we issued 6 minor alterations. When it comes to enforcement, we issued 4 notification letters and 3 notice to comply. We did multiple inspections, primarily to make sure encroachments are constructed per the permit conditions, and utilities are relocated, removed, for the core project to move forward. Next slide. in addition, we have also doing important work of transferring the operation and maintenance responsibility to LMAs for the completed construction phases. Starting this year, we have transferred the pocket area SRL C2 to DWR maintenance area 9, SRL C3 again to DWR maintenance area 9, and then Lower American River contracts 1 and 2 were transferred to American River Flood Control District 4NM. Then phase 2 of the SACPIA was transmitted to DWR. We also do a ton of project coordination with project partners and perform design plans reviews. I believe that concludes my presentation, and I will now invite Subir Dosu, the Deferred Encroachment Compliance Section Manager.
Thank you. All of those actions and activities and decisions and reports are done by your 4-person staff?
Correct. With the support of management.
Noted. And there certainly are a lot of partners there, but yes, very busy 4 people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Zubair Dosu, manager of the Deferred Encroachment Compliance Section, and today I'll be here to give an update on our section activities.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Next slide, please. We are a 3-member section. I myself have been leading the section, managing the section since May of last year. Richard Brewski is a water resource engineer for our section. He's in the audience with us today. Gentleman in the back, he manages our PL 8499 program as well as our SWIFT program for the board. Jeremiah Peak is also a water resource engineer for our section, and he's been with us since September of last year as well. Jeremiah Peak, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He's quarantined right now. A few of his roommates got exposed to COVID, so or housemates, so he's not with us today, but he's joined us online. Jeremiah, he leads the Army Corps of Inspections program for the board. So next slide, please. We'll go over the presentation outline for today's presentation, starting with the Public Law 8499 Rehabilitation Program. This is the program that provides federal assistance for our storm-damaged levees and flood control works. We'll look at the program status, where our levee systems are in the program, and then we'll look at some of the repair sites from previous storm-damaged events. Lastly, we'll talk about the operational matrix for our section as it relates to permitting, enforcement, inspection responsibilities for our section. A couple of background before we move on. This is okay to stay at that slide. We'll talk about how our levee systems can be active in the PL 8499 program. There's 2 ways to be active within that program. The first way to be active in the program is for the levee system to receive an acceptable core inspection rating. That's a minimally acceptable rating or an acceptable rating. The second way is for that levee system to be a participant of the SWIFT program. So the levee local maintaining agency must submit their letter of intent to initiate that process. That letter of intent is the local maintaining agency's plan to produce a SWIFT to address those deficiencies noted in the Army Corps of Engineers inspection report. So that is a long-term plan. It's a strategic plan. It addresses issues on the levee in a worst-case basis first. And that is all an effort to reduce the catastrophic risk of flooding for those communities behind the levee. So looking at the bar chart at the far left, we'll start with our levee systems. There are 15 of those levee systems in the dark blue category. They're active in the PL 8499 program. They are active due to passing the core inspection. Next up, we have 61 of our levee systems that are participating in the SWIFT program and therefore are eligible in the PL 8499 program. those 61 systems have an approved LOI, but also having an approved LOI means that they can have a draft SWIFT or a final SWIFT. To date, there are 9 final SWIFTs that have been approved by the Army Corps' headquarters. As of this year, 3 of those 9 SWIFTs were approved, and 2 of those SWIFTs for the San Joaquin Basin. Those are the first 2 levee systems that were approved in those basins. This is a plethora of levee systems for the Bear Creek levee systems, as well as the Mormon Slough levee systems. So back to our bar chart, we have one of our levee systems that are working on their way to becoming active in the PL 8499 program. That one levee system currently has a draft letter of intent, LOI. When that letter of intent has been reviewed and approved by the Corps, then it will join the rest of our 61 systems and become active in the program. Lastly, in the red shaded category, there are 31 levee systems that are currently inactive in the program. That is because they neither have acceptable inspector ratings, nor do they have an LOI to participate in the program. So the same general theme is reflected in the next 2 charts in terms of majority of miles of levee and majority of population. They do have coverage in the PL 8499 program. Next slide, please. This is a graphical spatial representation of the bar charts that you've seen in the previous slide. The dark shaded green areas are systems that are active in the program due to having an approved LOI. The lighter shaded green areas are our systems that are active in the program due to passing a core inspection. And then our red shaded areas, which there are very few of, they're inactive in the program currently as of now. And lastly, we have our pink shaded area. That is our RD 2060 Hastings Track system, levee system that is currently has a draft LOI that's being reviewed by the Corps. So they're on their way to becoming active in the PL 8499 program. All right, and that one system is in Solano County, if you couldn't see that. Next slide, please. For a summary of our PL 8499 repairs for last year's efforts and this year's efforts, for the 2017 storm damage sites, there were 2 sites repaired as of last year. For the 2019 storm damage sites, there were 4 sites repaired as of last year's efforts. And for the 2023 storm damage sites, there were 18 sites deemed eligible for repair in the Sacramento Basin. 15 of those sites have been repaired as of last year's efforts. 3 of those repairs were completed as of this month. And one of those 3 repairs were additional repairs for a subsequent failure that occurred in RD 1600. This wasn't the original failure that was requested damage assistance. However, the Corps saw that that failure was within the working footprint and warranted the repair, so that was repaired as of this month's effort. For the San Joaquin and Delta Basin, there were 9 sites that were eligible for repair. Each of those 9 sites were repaired as of last year. Between the Sacramento Basin and the San Joaquin Basin, we do have 6 sites that were appeals were submitted for. The original Corps' determination cited these sites as ineligible for PL 8499 repairs assistance. That has since been, since those appeal letters have been submitted from the board as well as the districts, the Corps has willing to take another look at these sites, and so we have urged the Corps to reassess these sites for consideration under the 2023 storm damage repairs. Next slide, please. Question?
Member Bosler?
Can you just describe a little bit? I mean, I'm just alarmed by the number of sites submitted and so few that were deemed eligible, and I just wondered if you could just give a little bit of a summary.
Right. So there are many sites submitted. I think between the San Joaquin Basin and the Sacramento Basin. Over 200 sites were submitted that requested assistance, but obviously the Corps must prioritize these sites. The resources are limited. Essentially, if the damage wasn't assessed as being critical, so within that levee prism, affecting the levee prism, it was most likely denied for assistance based on the urgent need to repair the other site. So as we'll demonstrate in the photos that you'll see, that this damage was damage to the levee prism itself. It rises to being more critical, and these were the sites that were deemed eligible for repair. Does that answer your question, Member Bosler?
I'm just surprised that folks would put forward proposals that were not deemed critical. So I guess it's just a priority. They just don't have very much money. So
it's also strategic as well. So the LMAs, they prepared a SWIFT plan to be in this program, or they've done well in their upkeep of their levies to be eligible in the program to receive those federal dollars when in need. So any damage that they experience after a storm event, they're taking note of those damages, and they are going to request assistance to all of the damage that is being identified within their levee systems. So it's not always guaranteed that those sites will be repaired, but it's the best effort. There's funding through other sources, through FEMA's grant funding to allow those repairs to go forward. Also, there's local efforts to local assistance to go forward with repairs that aren't covered under PL 8499.
However, a lot of those funding sources are drying up and are not ongoing. This is a commitment.
Right.
So, yeah.
Certainly a long-term commitment, but yes, when the damage was identified to be critical, those repairs were granted assistance. So we'll look at some of our success stories. We'll show before and afters of photos of the sites that were repaired, starting with our site in Levee District 1 of Sutter County. This site is along the Feather River at Laura Avenue. It was a 2019 storm damage site. This site in particular was a landside levee slip, and it was about approximately 50 feet in linear feet of damage. You can see in the photo on the right the repairs that were done as of last year. So moving on, we have before and after photos of our RD-108 Calusa Basin Drain site. This was a site in Arbuckle, California, south of White Road. This was a 2023 storm damage site. It was also a landslide slip. You can see in the photo on the left that there was substantial cracking in the levee. When those cracks were measured, it penetrated into the levee crown 15 inches. So this was a landslide slip repair. It was on the order of 490 feet of length of damage when measured, and the photo on the right shows the repairs that were done as of last year's effort. Moving on to our next slide, we have our site in RD 900. This is the Yellow Bypass Levee. This location is in West Sacramento, north of Jefferson Boulevard. So this was a 2023 storm damage site. It was also a landslide slip repair. This particular slip was 66 feet approximately in length, and approximately 700 feet downstream of this slip was another slip that occurred on the same levee, approximately 100 feet in length. Both of those slips have been repaired as of this month. So that is shown in the image on the right. And then onto our next slide, we have our last site that we'll show today, and this is before photos on the left that shows our site in RD 2064 on the San Joaquin River. This location is known as the Sturgeon Bend. It's at the confluence of the Stanislaus River and the San Joaquin River. It was a 2023 storm damage site. It was damaged due to waterside erosion, fighting methods were used. There was, as you can see, there's a wave protection that was placed down there on the banks. Essentially, this site was 500 feet of storm damage, approximately, and the photo on the right shows the repairs that were made as of last year's effort. It's important to note that when there is an alteration to the federal project, as you can see, the riprap was placed there for additional protection, that alteration makes it to our updated O&M manuals and as-built. So in the future, when the site needs maintenance or repairs, it negates the need for long-term, lengthy permit approvals because this is a responsibility reflected in their O&M manual. All right, next slide, please. We'll talk about our operational elements since the beginning of this year. Currently, our section has 2 permits under process. 2 minor alterations have been issued by our section, and 1 minor alteration is currently being processed. These approvals largely relate to relocation efforts that were needed for PL 8499 repairs, as well as other approvals of other repairs done outside of the PL 8499 program. Looking at our enforcement efforts, there have been 6 notification letters to take enforcement action. These notification letters range anywhere between notice to comply to courtesy letters, identifying encroachment issues in our levees and the need to correct those issues. Many of our enforcement cases are related to PL 8499 activities. When it was identified that the encroachment caused the damage to the levee, we're making outreach to those encroachment owners to to notify them that they're responsible and correcting the damage to the levee. We also provide LMA assistance to help our LMAs meet the objectives of their SWIPs. Some of this comes from larger levee improvement projects, as well as levee assessments that have identified encroachments and conflict on the levee for those assessments or projects. And when those conflicts are known, we do take the lead in making that outreach to resolve those conflicts through enforcement effort when needed. Lastly, we have our inspection efforts that, as a section, our section takes the lead in providing the record documents that are necessary for the Army Corps of Engineers prior to their inspections. When we have encroachments on those levees, the Army Corps of Engineers are using those permit documents to make sure those encroachments are meeting their conditions. When the Army Corps completes their assessment, they provide the draft report to the board staff for their review. To provide comments, the board staff disseminates that draft inspection report to applicable LMAs and their representatives, gathers their comments, and submits that back to the Army Corps of Engineers for their review. When that inspection report is finalized, it comes before the board at the next upcoming board meeting to present to the public. And I'm sure you've seen a couple of those. That's usually a standing item on our agenda. As of this year, we have had 4 inspection briefings thus far, and we are looking forward to having another inspection briefing in the August board meeting. So next slide, please. Here's our last slide to talk about is our Central Valley Flood Protection Board Data Exchange Center. This is our primary mode of communicating with our local maintaining agencies and the Army Corps of Engineers. As I expressed earlier, there's a need to provide record documents for our projects and status updates, and utilizing the SharePoint allows us to, one, to house all of these programs in the same shared space. Previous to our use of the SharePoint, we were sending separate links to access this information. So if you wanted to know status for the LOI SWIFT program, that was a separate link. Likewise, for Army Corps inspections, if you wanted to get that data, receive that data, it was under another link. So this allows us, our SharePoint allows us to better serve our LMAs. It allows us to be proactive making that communication. Essentially, all of the LMA contacts that we have, we've reached out to them to share this link with them for their use. And we're optimistic, hopeful that are for our systems that aren't participating in the SWIFT program and aren't active in the PL 8499 program, that they have an example of what an approved LOI looks like, what an approved SWIFT looks like, so they can see what level of effort it takes to become active in the program. So that is the goal, that is the objective, and I thought we could highlight that here as well. So that concludes my presentation, unless there's any questions. Board Member Countryman.
Member Countryman?
How are these things located? Is it by river mile or is it by coordinate system when you enter them into this database?
So are you talking specifically to SharePoint?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's related by program. So for the Army Corps of Inspections, it's by levy system. So in those documents, we have a folder for each levy system. When the Corps completes that inspection, that's where we're locating that information. So it's segregated based on which program it's spoken to, but it's usually typically by levy system.
It's not geographically identified. In other words, if you wanted to go in and find out from river mile this to river mile that, how many projects have occurred in that area?
Yeah, it's not organized in that way. It's typically by levy system, but there are maps, there's quick links, there's access to the California Data Exchange. That's something that DWR manages, and that has that information spatially that you could look to on their viewer too as well.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Vice President Valines.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
On the slide before, where it had the permits, I was just curious, first of all, good job on any permits, that's fantastic. What's the pipeline before that, of permits that are waiting? You know, what projects are waiting to be permitted?
Oh, okay. So for our list, there was one site that you saw in the West Sacramento that needed to relocate the PG&E power poles in that footprint for the repair to go forward. So that's one of our permits. And then we also have a permit for Brennan's Andrews Island. They are choosing to do some mitigation efforts for one of their levees and vegetation benches as well for erosion that occurred in that area. So that's usually the bulk of our requests. So any repair efforts outside of PL 8499 and any encroachments that are relocated are the bulk of our permitting or work authorization requests at this moment. We will in the future have more permits that we process under our enforcement efforts. So usually with enforcement, there's a need to permit unpermitted encroachments and bring them to compliance. So in the future, we will ramp up those efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Member Grego?
Yeah, before I ask my question, I just want to thank the presenters. They did a good job on today's topic. So on slide 39, you have a graph there that describes who's on the LOI and the SWIFT, and then there's that top tier there, the red. How would you characterize those levy areas?
I would say those 31 levee systems, they're more rural areas.
Okay.
So it's more of it's more of an uphill battle for those levee systems because they have lesser fundings and resources to be a participant in this program. So one thing that's helpful for these levee systems, if they have a district engineer or consultant engineer that can help them get them started on producing that framework plan, the SWIFT. And so if they're lacking those resources, right, then it's an uphill battle to start that process because it is very resource intensive.
Thank you for that, because I kind of figured in my mind that's how it was.
Yeah.
And so they just lack the resources in order to get to where everybody else is at.
Essentially. So we've taken a look at, or we heard a lot at our previous past board meetings about the horseshoe levy. So that one, for example, is one that is in the process of, they have a draft LOI, but it hasn't been submitted because of the lack of FMAP funding. So there's no funding to do the upkeep on those documents. Essentially, it's a living document and changes over time. So due to the shortfalls in the funding for the FMAP program, the necessary funding to get those efforts advancing has been stalled out. So these communities do experience that from time to time.
Thank you for that. And then my last question is, when you talked about, the Corps only having so much money and taking the priority items that they could handle, would the rest of the, the other applicants, would they be dinged if there was a inspection during that course of time on some of this, some of the defects that happened because of high water?
Yes, so that's unfortunate. If there's damage and it's not corrected, if it's dismissed through PL 8499 made ineligible, it becomes the responsibilities of those localities to address those damages. So that's unfortunate. We have seen over time when the next opening of the program begins and if that damage hasn't been corrected, it's possibly going to be submitted again for the next round of reviews. And we've seen cases where those damages have been dismissed because they've been noted in Army Corps of Engineers inspection records, or they've been requested for previous PL 8499 repair initiatives.
So they can continue to request that assistance?
Certainly.
Yeah, after.
Following a storm damage event.
After it gets turned down, yeah.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, it is definitely strategic for LMAs to submit all of the damage that they identified on their levees following a storm event. However, the Corps is keeping track of these incidents, and they have their list. And if it was deemed ineligible, then they're expecting the local communities, the state, or through other efforts to get that damage repaired. But
Would you say that a lot of times when they're not recommending any action is because it's related to maintenance?
That is one of the cases. It could be something that there's thresholds, so I believe that it has the one cost-benefit ratio, so it has to pencil out for the Corps to go forward with those repairs. There's a level platform, a starting platform of $15,000 that it has to amount to for the Corps to do that repair. So yeah, they are looking at it, financial component of that for the Corps to go forward with their repairs.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We have an online person, Megan Nagy. You can unmute yourself, ma'am.
Good morning. This is Megan Nagy from the Sacramento River West Side Levee District. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Zubair did a great presentation, and I wanted to add a few things to give some context related to my districts. We are one of the districts that submitted an appeal, and one of the sites that we appealed is actually a site that very similar damages in 2017 that was approved and did get repaired, which is why we have rebutted it. It is one that if the Corps continues to deny, it's a seepage or a boils location that we will be required to repair, and it will end up costing a significant portion of money that we will not have. So we appreciate your support in that appeal. We also had several sites get denied that we chose not to appeal, and they're in this catch-22 situation. There are erosion sites that are not quite close enough to the levee that the Corps, so the Corps does not deem them eligible, yet in future events, they may say it was previous damage, and then once it gets close enough, we won't be eligible. So that's, Keely, one of the reasons that there are sites that have been denied, that they say it's not yet into the levee prism, so therefore it's denied. And it's a rough situation. The Corps was also much more stringent in evaluating what they considered previous damage in that round of events. They actually looked at a few sites that were inspected as minimally acceptable and not actually requiring repair, just their report said we should monitor. Yet in a flood event, they denied it because they said it was previous damage. So it's a difficult situation that we're in with that program. In addition, one of the Corps did say that some of the sites were denied because of lack of resources. And their policy, as Zubair said, uses a cost-benefit ratio and a threshold of $15,000 as the basis for denial. It is my understanding that there is not a rationale for denial just based on lack of resources. That typically is how they prioritize. If they don't have enough money to do sites that are considered eligible, then those priorities go down to the bottom, and then it's on us to lobby congressional members to actually add money to the pot. So in my experience, I had not seen denials based on a lack of resources in the past. So that was different. And from a FEMA perspective, these sites, from a permanent repair perspective, if you are potentially eligible for the Corps, you are not eligible for a permanent repair under FEMA's, they call it Category D. That is one of the very first questions that FEMA asks. The only FEMA funds that those of us that could potentially get PL 8499 rehab are eligible for are our emergency response. So if we did levee patrols and had to do sandbag rings or raincoats over levee slips, those sorts of things are eligible through FEMA, and historically have been reimbursed. Moving forward, that is much more precarious situation. But permanent repairs are not. So if the Corps denies it, then it is all back on the state local shoulders to figure out how to make repairs. And then lastly, with the FMAP funds Zubair just talked about, I do foresee, with the lack of this funding, problems associated with LMAs completing the documentation for SWIFTs and LOIs, as well as being able to make adequate progress towards those SWIFTs or LOIs that have been previously approved. And so we are in a really tough situation over the next several years with a lack of FMAP funding combined with less FEMA resources that we're hearing are going to come through, and potentially less PL 8499 eligibility. It's going to be a rough couple years while all of the funding is lacking. That is all I have.
Well, I know you shortened that with "that is all." It's certainly a dilemma. And adding age materials of a levee system should be included there. But I always get concerned about this cost benefit because the vulnerable communities are not going to come up with more cost. They just aren't. And to put them at danger because they don't have the funds just as wrong. So we'll keep lobbying. Thanks for the work you do. Mr. Harvey, and your folks and the ones who are brave enough to raise your hand. I know you're in the audience. Thank you for putting this presentation together. We see your activity reports, but when you actually come here and speak and provide the information, we understand the breadth and depth of the work that you do with amazingly small staffs. I know
Small
there's
but mighty.
Small but mighty, and we work with our partners as much as we can. So any other comments?
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harvey, do you have any closing remarks? No, ma'am. Okay. I'm going to call a 5-minute break. It's going to be called a Dolan 5 minutes. Break. I've been advised that 5 minutes is up. I also listened to that, I just was listening, not directly, just with a couple. There was a lot of conversations going on, and I just think that that's helpful to our process as well. But it went on longer than I thought it would. So here we are at 11:01. And we are at the Department of Water Resources, item 10 report. So I'm going to say we've received a written report of monthly activity. We do read it, and I always ask if board members have any questions or comments they want to make on the written report from DWR. I don't see. I'm not going to ask the audience. We're going to go to item number 2, which we're anxious to hear regularly, and happy to have you here this morning, Mr. Williams. Christopher Williams is going to do this presentation of what's going on with the 2027 update while we still try to implement the 2022. Thanks for being here. Good morning.
Yeah, happy to be here. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Christopher Williams, and I am the Flood Planning Branch Manager with the Division of Flood Planning and Improvements with California Department of Water Resources. I really appreciate being here today. It's not easy getting on your agenda in the last couple months, so I know you folks have been very, very busy, and it's been a while since we gave an update to the Flood Protection Board. So the team's been very excited about what we've been working on, and so I want to say up front that I am going to give a presentation on what the individual team's vision and progress is, but we hope in the next 2 years to be giving additional deep dives into a lot of this material, kind of like we've done with past plan updates, in 2017 and 2022. So look forward to that. I have several members of my team here today, and if there's any one takeaway, I can just say that here we are in year 3 of the plan update, and the team has been just making great progress, and we're super excited about what we've been working on. So hopefully we can share that with you, and some of that will rub off in the presentation here. So today I'm going to start off a little bit about the CVFPP history. This will undoubtedly be just a refresher for the board members, but for the people that are here today with us and also listening online, I figured it would set the stage a little bit for why we're doing what we're doing and the progress that we're making. So then I'll talk a little bit more about the progress. I want to give an overview of the CVFPP portal, which is one of the exciting advancements we're doing for this plan update. There's an awful lot to say there, so excited about giving you an overview of that. And then I'm going to end today talking about the schedule, where we're at. So the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, it's a strategic blueprint for what we're going to do over the next 30 years in California's Central Valley. It has always represented a diverse portfolio of actions, and it strikes a balance between those urban areas and the system-wide areas, rural, agricultural, and small community. It can be defined by, it's built through this strong collaboration amongst 3 levels of government, local, state, and federal partners. And really, it can be defined by the communication that's had, the engagement, collaboration, and partnerships. And basically a call to action. We've seen an awful lot of activities happen in the last 15 years under the umbrella of what has been described in the CVFPP. So it's an exciting time, as it has been in the Central Valley. It's represented a platform and a unified voice. It is a descriptive vision of what we want to achieve, and it recommends bold investments and actions to reduce the Central Valley flood risk over the next 30 years. The flood plan has always endeavored to form alignment across water sectors and in all of water management, taking into account things that are happening with groundwater, water supply, reservoir operations, recreation, and certainly ecosystem by promoting ecosystem functions, resiliency, sustainability, and multi-benefit actions in a multi-benefit landscape. So there was a couple things that were the catalysts, certainly not the only ones, but a couple major ones that got us down this road on the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan. Certainly the devastating levee break in 1986 on the Linda Levee was one of them. The Paterno decision in 2003 held Californians liable for almost $500 million in damages. So that was definitely one of them. And then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, and it raised that nationwide awareness of flood risk and put in sharp contrast how in the Sacramento Valley, we have one of the highest levels of flood risk. And so with that, Californians were listening. They paid attention, and they passed historical general obligation bonds in 2005, 2006. Proposition 1E and 84 gave us historical new levels of resources, billions of dollars to address this issue of flood risk management in the Central Valley. Senate Bill 5 in 2007 and as enacted by the Central Valley Flood Protection Act of 2008, set the goal for urban level of flood protection, the 200-year level of flood protection. And it also dictated that the state shall do this high-level visionary overview flood plan of flood risk management for the Central Valley. So the inaugural plan came out in 2012. That plan can be defined by setting the state system-wide investment approach. What is it we're going to do? And it's back to that slide I had before. It's those 4 areas of interest. It's going to be a balanced approach, not just for our urban areas, but for rural, small community, and also large system-wide actions that add resiliency to the system. We had our first major update in 2017, massive update. A lot of things were added in 2017, notably the robust regional coordination that was kicked off. We also did 2 basin-wide feasibility studies, one in the Sacramento and one in the San Joaquin Basin. And we had a comprehensive conservation strategy as well as an investment strategy. So 2017 was a very huge update. Our next update to the plan happened in 2022, and we had updated climate risk technical analysis, enhanced cost estimating with our operations and maintenance, as well as our deferred maintenance estimates, and we had refined policy considerations. Which brings us to 2027, the update that we're working on right now. We're building on a lot of that great work that defined those past updates to the plan, but we're going to be integrating a lot of the conservation strategy work into the plan itself, and we're going to be doing this new CVFPP portal, the CVFPP Live that I like to call it. We're trying to keep up, as you saw in some of the presentations earlier today. A lot of things are moving to having databases and viewers in a way that you can view the material. And so the CVFPP sees a huge opportunity to do things in that manner, and instead of just having written plans, being able to have updates during each 5-year update cycle. Also in 2027, new technical analysis with our hydrology and our weather generator approach. So a lot of exciting things happening for this next update. So how we're organized into teams to deliver the plan. Overall, it's being led by the planning team. But this organization is similar to past updates. I want to give an update today on these 5 teams that you see down here below. We have the technical team, which does our flood risk analysis, and there's a lot of pieces that go into our technical analysis. Identifying existing flood impacts, system vulnerabilities, analyzing life risks, and using the latest climate change data. Our investment team, working on those investment recommendations, developing the funding plan, calculating the cost shares and cost estimates and phasing and all the different ways that we're going to deliver the improvements in the CVFPP. Our regional flood management program, that's where you'll see obviously all the great coordination that is always defined updates to the plan, working with our regional partners and interested parties to get their priorities, their project descriptions, and input into each one of the CVFPP updates. Our conservation strategy team, obviously working on integrating all the different opportunities for conservation in the Central Valley. This time around, they've been working really, really hard on how that work is going to translate into our new portal with the conservation module, and also how that we can best have a very graphical, illustrative flavor to the next update to the plan to really show the nexus between flood risk management and ecosystem. And then the last team would be our flood system status report and state plan and flood control descriptive document team. And that's where that team works on those 2 documents, like even some of the presentations you saw earlier today with a lot of the good work that's being done, that needs to be described in our descriptive document and reflected in the status of the system. So I will say too, as always, these teams and the planning team that's bringing all that good work into the plan itself, this is with close collaboration with executive oversight, the Department of Water Resources, and leadership here at the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. So I'm going to go through each one of those 5 teams. So for technical updates, there's an awful lot that goes on with our technical analysis. And I will say in past presentations, we've shown it in a flow chart where we talk about, the hydrology and reservoir routing and all the different things that we do. I really like using it here because this graphic brings it down to earth on basically what what we do as we track all the way from, the headwaters to the floodplains and out to the delta. So climate and watershed analysis, it all starts with where the water comes from as it flows into our reservoirs. We do a lot of modeling on a reservoir routing. As that water comes out of our reservoirs and it flows past our rural and agricultural areas, small communities, and our urban areas, down through the system, we do all of our channel routing and our floodplain routing of the water. And we do geotechnical assessments on the levees that keep the water within the channel. What the fragility, what the performance is of those levees, seepage issues, updating a lot of that technical data. And then ultimately ending with our damage and life loss assessment. How when we are in a high water event and we're experiencing a storm, what the system performance, giving all of those different features, looks like when all of that data and analysis is put into play. And then always looking at emergency response and how a greater or more robust emergency response can affect that system performance and ultimately affect the predicted life loss and damage. So starting at that first part that I talked about, the hydrology, the climate and watershed analysis. One of the key features that we're doing this time around is this new thing that you undoubtedly have heard about, the weather generator. So the weather generator data set contains over 100 years of synthetic historical temperature and precipitation record that gets used for the statewide hydrologic model. The weather generator data set also contains 23 scenarios of changes to the temperature and precipitation that gets used in that hydrologic model. The rainfall runoff analysis and hydrologic routing provides 100 years of daily flow time series for each scenario that is used to estimate the unregulated flow frequency and the exceedance probability plots. The next step is to use the latest climate circulation models, those global climate models, to estimate, form the estimation. So here, what I want to point out is that this first step, we've made great progress. And I guess I would say that largely we're mostly done with the analysis. So 100% done with processing the weather generator data, working with the global climate models, doing the rainfall runoff analysis, the unregulated frequency flow analysis, and then we're working on additional work on estimating that future climate change. So that first piece that I talk about for the technical part is mainly done. So then the next piece, going back to the map that I showed, would be how you're going to route that water through the system. So you're talking about the channel and the floodplain routing. What I want to point out is for the in-channel and floodplain analysis, the figure on the right here is showing a map of both the Sacramento and the San Joaquin River systems hydraulic model development. The colors distinguish the tiers of update for each impact area. So those are the impact area that we have an index point, and those are the areas where the water would flow out into the floodplain. The colors, I want to note that the yellow impact areas include new analysis for Merced, Davis, Woodland, and Chico, which was not included in previous updates. And so with a lot of the technical analysis, the other thing I want to say is you don't have to update everything with each 5-year update cycle, but there is a lot of things that do get updated. So it's good to have these new impact areas included. And so a report out on how much we're done here, as you can see here, the San Joaquin baseline, it's 100% complete. So we did over 200 model runs, and they are in quality control review right now. For the Stockton and Delta models, there's 50 model runs, and they're about 30% complete. The Sacramento baseline is similar to the San Joaquin. There's 200 plus, and we are working on that right now. And we are updating the channel to floodplain relationships as needed. Yeah.
How are you handling projects under construction, like the widening of the Sacramento Weir, the changes at Folsom Dam and so forth that are already underway? How do you handle that in this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have with each, we have our baseline of projects, things that have been done since 2007. And then we also have what's included in, we set the like, for example, in 2027, what we think would be completed at that point. And so we do the technical analysis based on that, and then we have our future condition. So there's an awful lot of stuff that is nearing completion right now that is included in that baseline condition. And then some of the stuff that we haven't even started is further out.
Excuse me, so the 2027, will, oh, this is Joe Countryman, board member.
Thank you.
The work that it is scheduled to be completed by 2027 is shown, is accounted for as complete.
Yes.
So that would, I think, include the changes at Folsom Dam and I don't know if the widening of the Sacramento Weir is included in there, but those are major, major projects. So then you'd be evaluating from there on?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. The last piece on the technical update, as I mentioned from the going back to the map on the previous slide, it ends with your damage and life loss assessment. So like I said, we've added those 4 additional areas, Merced, Davis, Woodland, and Chico. We are identifying, using the latest National Structure Inventory and Census population. We do that with each plan update. A lot of this stuff is updated sometimes every 5 years. Some of the data is every 10 years. But we want to keep track of exactly what's out there, inventory out in the floodway and floodplain. And we aggregate data from various other sources, including growth projections, taking into account land use, county parcel, and development growth. Yeah.
This photo map, is that an actual city?
It is.
Which one? It's not mine.
I am not sure.
Okay.
Does anyone on my team know?
Looks like there's a major highway bisecting it.
Modesto.
Modesto?
We have a good guess of Modesto.
Guess is Modesto. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the next one of the 5 that I want to update you on is what we've been working on with conservation. So the big change here for 2027 is we will not have a standalone conservation strategy document, but rather we're going to bring a lot of that work, building on everything that's been done, going back to the conservation framework in 2012, to bring it into the plan itself and form that stronger bond between what we're trying to do, the nexus between flood and ecosystem and conservation. So how we're going to do this, the vision is for 2027 to be very graphical and very visual, very compelling, with good storytelling and to communicate those messages effectively. There's a couple examples on the screen here. We know that for a lot of the different studies that have been done recently, there's a lot of opportunity to show things very graphically, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we want to showcase the progress, the effects, and the value of conservation efforts that have been done so far, and then what the future holds over the next 30-year planning horizon. And we want to empower flood practitioners with opportunities, tools, and best practices. So these are some of the areas that are, I would say, evergreen, but they are going to be reflected in the next update to the plan, as well as the conservation module that we're working on for the CVFPP portal. So adapting to evolving expectations, we recognize that more is being asked of the flood system than just flood protection, and working to explain additional benefits that can be had from the system, identifying those permitting efficiencies, highlighting how considering additional benefits with flood protection may be able to use new permitting efficiencies, aligning of the funding, identifying funding sources that can support multi-benefit actions in a multi-benefit landscape, operation, maintenance, repair, replacement, and rehabilitation considerations, highlight that where those actions can support species and habitat recovery, and also considering land use, understanding the compatible working lands and potential new land use. So this last slide on the conservation strategy is what I wanted to talk about that conservation module that you're going to see on the portal. So we're going to have a lot of tools that are on that new module. We're going to obviously bring a lot of the material that you'd see in the plan. So there's going to be an overview of the CS, highlighting those key messages, case studies, and visuals to ensure users understand how the work benefits them. We're going to have multi-benefit tools, providing lessons learned, best management practices, and opportunities to utilize new permitting and various funding sources. There's going to be an opportunity viewer, conservation data viewer, pulling in different data sources to help users see in a map-based format where their projects are located and what the conservation landscape looks like, and what those opportunities and constraints are. And then also performance tracking, continue to tracking progress towards meeting the measurable objectives. So the third team that I want to talk about is Regional Flood Management Program. This one, as many of the board members know, is near and dear to my heart. I think that the entire success of the CVFPP cycle has been always defined by our robust regional flood management program. I think it's a key piece to the CVFPP, and we wouldn't be as successful as we are without it. I'm happy to report that new agreements are in place for the 2027 update cycle. Although the resources are modest, we're very excited to be able to work with our regional partners as we have in the past to gather their priorities and projects and different perspectives from their region. It drives, this program drives California's flood resilience strategy. It empowers the local voices, it gives them a voice, a seat at the table, and it makes sure that the plan is not just a top-down state federal plan, it's really a grassroots plan. And as I've pointed out in the past, our portfolio of actions that define what we're going to do in the CVFPP, there's over 1,000 of them, and 70% of what we include in our portfolio has its origins in the RF&P program. So they're projects that have been submitted and that are going on, reflect what's going on in those regions. So it's a pretty important piece. It always is focused on bridging regional priorities with the state and federal priorities and investments, and taking into account protecting vulnerable communities. That's always been a top priority. Once again, that program gives a voice to our rural, agricultural, frontline communities. So we've always tried to leverage regional partnership. As I mentioned, we have the new RF&P agreements in place. We are kicking off the quarterly RF&P meetings series next month in July. The first rollout is, we're pretty excited about our management action tracking system that I'll talk about in a little bit. We're going to be rolling that out to the regional partners. We've had robust technical knowledge sharing. We heard the regions loud and clear during the 2022 update cycle that they wanted to be more involved with the technical analysis. They didn't want to just read about it in the public draft. They wanted to be involved. And so, my team Chong's been working really hard to make sure that the regional partners are invited to those meetings. And so it's great to have them there to hear what we're going on, and they don't just hear about it in a presentation. They're right there, when the sausage making is happening, helping us out. So there's that. We also are always leveraging the avenues of the coordinating and advisory committees. The CVFPP portal input, I mentioned how next month we're going to be kicking off that management action tracking system, but that's not the only one. As we develop these other modules I'll tell you about in a minute, we do want to get input from the regional partners on those. And also tribal and other community interests. So investment strategy. The biggest change here, and I can't say it enough, I'm so excited about the CVFPP portal, but one of the main features, the first one we started off was the MATS, the Management Action Tracking System. And just to put it in perspective, the way we used to do updates in the past, it was Excel-based, and we have that famously long and laborious to update spreadsheet we were using that was, if you could scroll it out, it was probably 20 feet long, and we would give excerpts of that to our regional partners and say, please update your projects. And so it was problematic at best, but we did what we could. This time around, we've endeavored to put all of the information from 2017 and 2022 already preloaded into the Management Action Tracking System. It's going to be very intuitive. Think of it like almost like like TurboTax type intuitive, where it guides you along. You can input your data, you can modify your projects, you can input new projects. It's geo-referenced. You'll be able to zoom out and see what other projects are in the same region. And so it's pretty exciting. So next month we're going to be rolling that out, and we have a working session planned, one in the San Joaquin and one in the Sacramento. But that's not to say that all the other things that have always defined the investment strategy work are not going to be done. We are always, as we always have been, we're going to be working on understanding historical expenditures, both at the local, state, and federal level, defining our improvements in the terms of what's capital investments and what is ongoing investments. ongoing investments such as obviously operations and maintenance, reservoir operations, emergency response, a lot of those things just to keep us going. It will, as it always has in the past, include phasing of the state system-wide investment approach actions. That's the portfolio of actions, like how would they phase over probably the same as we've done before, 10-year pieces. Looking at funding mechanisms, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. In the past, as you know, we've used, general obligation bonds, general fund, local assessments, federal programs. There's all the tried and true ones, but I think there's a lot of opportunity, like I mentioned, across those other water sectors. There's a lot of money that's probably being spent in the Central Valley, and there's an opportunity to find out what those other programs are, see if there's a flood management nexus, and how we can get things in place better. So, as always, we're going to be working on cost shares and ability to pay. Financial model. There's something there that I want to update you on. So similar to the old spreadsheet I talked about for the management actions, we had an Excel-based financial model we used for 2017 and for 2022. It also was very problematic, and it was really hard to fit all of what we wanted to do into something that could be phased or was reasonable given those funding mechanisms. So we've worked with the consultant this time around, and we have a much more robust financial model that is not Excel-based. So I probably see that being another update later, maybe next year, that I'll give you an update on that.
Through the chair.
Member Griego.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you're going to be creative in regards to financing. I think that's really important. I think there's an opportunity there as well. But also with that, are you going to recognize some of the limitations that we're facing in regards to tariffs and how they're going to impact projects, about the reduction in the federal agencies and how that also, again, impacts projects and the way they move through the process?
Yeah, we certainly are. And to be honest with you, that's one of the big challenges that the team is working on for traditionally what's been Chapter 4 of the plan. I mean, in the plan, you lay out, set the stage. Chapter 3, you talk about what you want to do, and then it's like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to pay for it? What is the, a lot of things are changing, and not only the California's budget crisis, but just, on the world stage and whatnot. And it's going to be really hard. This time around, you can't just say call to action, and then you'll wave a magic wand and this is all going to happen. I think we're going to have to do, similarly we did in 2017, run some other scenarios. We will always have the full build out. This is what the plan recommends and this is what it's going to cost. But I think we need to look at some other realities this time around. So yeah, but that has been weighing heavily on our minds.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then always we're looking at delivery through state programs, how our programs that we have set up at the state can deliver action on these fronts. So the last piece, number 5, that I want to give you an update on is our descriptive document and flood system status report. As I said, some of the presentations, you saw a lot of activity that's going on recently. The job of the descriptive document is to describe what the state plan of flood control is, and then also any updates, anything that has changed, anything that has been added to the state plan of flood control. So as always, we will be updating that document. The flood system status report, we are taking into account into the 2025 levee inspections that have been completed. Also, I want to say here that although you will see the traditional published printed descriptive documents, flood system status report, as you always have, there's a huge opportunity here with our new CVFPP portal. And we do have a module on the FSSR. And so just to give you a flavor of what that is when you're looking at any of these documents we had before and you're trying to see a levee segment on an 11 by 17 page or whatever, it's very difficult. But by having our portal work with all, CDEC and FERIX and all these other databases, being able to zoom in is going to be very powerful and see what the changes are. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. So the next one is the planning update. As I mentioned, planning leads direction and takes in data and everything from these other 5 teams and actually works to craft the narrative and deliver the plan. So we are organizing the efforts of all the 5 teams under these 3 themes. I want to say, as always with the CVFPP updates, the themes don't define everything that's in the CVFPP. They're just themes that we want to highlight. So The first one, we want to be climate smart. We want to address climate resilience and readiness. We want to take into account severe weather preparedness, emergency response, community resilience, and multi-benefit solutions. The second one, strengthening collaborative action. We want to empower the communities. We want to support underserved communities. We want to have a robust tribal engagement. And we see the CVFPP portal fitting in here as well, because part of being able to provide that assistance and make all the information available to help those communities can be part of the portal that we're developing. And then the last one, I talked about how we're integrating the conservation strategy into the plan itself. So enhancing ecosystem integration. Visually show what's possible, what's the partnerships that we have with our regional partners. We want to have inclusive risk metrics and also nature-based solutions. And we do understand that the same footprint that the flood system shares with, it's critically important with water supply and ecosystem and everything, so.
And groundwater.
Groundwater, yes. So what has the plan been working on? So obviously I mentioned team coordination across those 5 teams, make sure that they're supported and aligned, sharing data, making progress, keeping to schedules, and starting to tease out some of those messages. We've been working on the CVFPP outline for 2027, and from an annotated outline, develops a storyboard. And that's where you do a lot of brainstorming and workshopping on. So you've got the messages, you've got the themes, you know what basically should be included in the plan and what you want to say, but what are the compelling graphics and visuals that you can include to get that message across, and what is the look and feel of the plan? So the team's been looking at recent contemporary efforts across the nation that have worked and some that haven't, and what we want the 2027 to really look like. So I think it's been really exciting work on that front.
Vice President Vines.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah,
Have
okay.
you seen some that you do like? Or I mean, you're just going to kind of go through everything, or are there a couple?
Yeah, we've seen, I'll probably get this name wrong, but you know, what's been going on in the Louisiana plan, I think is really interesting how they show the chapters, and it's almost like a call for each one of the chapters. Without just being basic, it's quite compelling. And there's others as well. There's a lot of activities.
Cool, thank you.
Through the chair.
Member Grego?
So in the plan, it looks really great and organized, but what about advocacy, you know, with our federal partners and our state partners? I mean, how do you advocate for not just the plan, but the needs of the plan, you know, in regards to resources?
Well, one of the things that at the very least, we try and work to get the messaging very clear so that we can work with, like, for example, the Flood Control Association and our local partners to fuel that unified voice. So, you know, to be honest, a lot of the advocacy happens through that, to make sure that we feed what's needed to be able to show that.
And I think that's important, that everybody's on the same page and working in the same direction, but also the advocacy to your decision makers on your legislature, whether they're federal or state. You know, they need to know what the needs are in order to be able to work through their process.
Yeah, we do endeavor to keep the lines of communication open as we can with our legislative analyst office, and obviously briefing executive and trying to have our ears to the railroad tracks, or whatever the phrase is, to know what's going on and make sure they know what we're working on and what the needs are. Yep.
It's hard.
So some, not all, but just some of the brief engagement activities that I want to highlight. Last month, we were at the coordinating committee, and we gave a pretty in-depth teaser of what the portal can do and what it's looking like. So we're really happy to have done that. I'm here today briefing the board. As I mentioned, this is just a high-level overview of what the teams have been working on. We're certainly going to take, over the next 2 years, some deeper dives into the investment strategy and our technical work, and a lot on the conservation strategy as well. Next month, we have those 2 meetings that I talked about. We are kicking off the quarterly meetings with our regional partners, and we're going to be rolling out the MATS, the Management Action Tracking System. It's going to be a workshop flavor. We've asked the regions to bring your laptops. We have the team trained up. We're going to present the material, but then allow adequate space for people to try it out. We also are looking forward to September. As always, we will have a presence at the Flood Management Association conference, and we're looking forward to interacting with regional partners and floodplain advocates and consultants as well. The other thing that's not on the schedule that I want to highlight is in August. It's August 14th. We are doing an informational for our tribal partners. So there's a tribal informational that's being coordinated, and there's a flyer that we've already produced and whatnot. So 2 more things, and I'll wrap up. I want to talk a little bit about the portal, and then I promised I would tell you what our schedule looks like. So why are we doing the portal? We want to keep the CVFPP relevant. We want to make it boost efficiency, improve accuracy. We want to people not have to turn to just pulling out a written document and try and find material. If they can find out where to download it from, we want them to know we have CVFPP portal, CVFP Live. Go here. You have all the different modules. You can find out whatever you want to know about the projects, what the purpose of the CVFPP is, what conservation opportunities there are, what the funding outlook looks like, all those great things. Partner and external modules, they're going to simplify those data requests and updates and queries. Just to give you an example of that, in the past when we have a city or county want to find out what underserved community projects are in Feather River region or in this city or county or whatever, or they want to know how much funding is going towards levee improvements in my region. It's been a phone call, and then we look in the database and we get back to them in a week or 2 or a day or whatever. We're hoping with this, people can go online during any of the years in the 5-year update cycle, and they can gather that information. Certainly, you can always give my team a call, and we'll help you out, and we'll get the data for you. But I think this is going to make it a lot better, facilitating collaboration and communication. So this is not the final version, but this will give you an idea of similar to other databases and portals that you've seen. You will have a splash page, and then there's going to be these 6 areas down below: the modules, the management action tracking system, flood performance tracking system, conservation, system status report, all of the technical work, and funding. And this is how we organize. We do understand that there's different user profiles, like who's going to go to the portal. There's going to be a lot of different people that go there. There's going to be 3 levels of access. So you're obviously going to have the people working on the portal, DWR, admin. We're going to have access probably at the highest level to be able to go in there and work on the investment strategy and all the other things we're going to do. We're going to have a level of access for our regional partners so that they can go in there and modify their projects and pull information out and whatnot. And then there obviously will be another public-facing portal. There'll be where there will be limitations on what the public can find out and what they can see, but as much as we can possibly do, there'll be that level. So 3 levels of access. I already talked about you see here the 6 in the middle here of our modules that we're going to have. And then I just want to highlight on this slide that we're trying to utilize a bunch of different data sources. Obviously, we have all the data that our team produces, as well as all the documentation that's going to be available, project information that we get from our regional partners, as well as other divisions and programs at the state. But tying into a lot of different databases as well. CDEC, this is going to be CDEC, based on CDEC, tying into FERIX and some of the other, like I said, a lot of other groups are developing portals and databases as well. And we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we do want to make it so that things that are relevant to the CVFPP, people will go to our portal, and it's going to be easy for them to find the information. If what they're searching for is down deeper in the weeds, and it would be best necessitated by a different database, we'll point them in that direction. But that's the big picture of what we see with the portal. So I want to end with where we're at right now. So you see the start at the top. We're in June of 2025. The team's been working really hard. The planning team, as I mentioned, working on the themes, the equity metrics, policy recommendations, and strategic planning. That started 3 years ago, and it's continuing on. it'll continue on. The plan production, as I said, we are working right now on outlining and formulating what content is going to be in the plan and how the storyboarding can help us get those graphics in place that'll tell the story that we want to tell. Let's see, portfolio development, policy refinement, conservation integration, and then down below, those are the 5 teams that I gave you an update on today. We are going to continue to work on the data and the good work that they're doing for success. As in past plan updates, we're looking towards next year. We'll have a internal draft where we can get that storyboard and start working on the internal draft that will ultimately end in a public draft that's going to come out next year in 2026. As you've seen before, undoubtedly there'll be a lot of public comments and a lot of tips on how we can improve the plan and things that should be included and whatnot. It's an exciting time, as it always is. We will be working on addressing all those comments of the public draft, marching towards 2027 for plan adoption by the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. So, and then I also have an icon up here. You see CVFPP portal. That's the public-facing portal. So when the plan rolls out and it's finally adopted in 2027, we want it to coincide with having the final public-facing portal ready. So people can read our plan, and they can also go on the portal and see all the great things that visuals and access to data that we hope. So that's all I have for you today. I do have a QR code right here that will lead you if anyone wants to submit comments. My team we are anxious to hear any comments that people have. Like I said, now would be the time because we're deep in the middle of it, of developing the plan. So any feedback you have, we'd be happy to receive it. So with that, if there's any questions from the board or public.
Phew. Thank you. Thank you for that PowerPoint as well. Let me ask board members, if you have any, we'll go this way. Member
Yeah, no, I have a comment more than a question, but I commend you for bringing the plan into the 21st century in terms of making it digital and more usable and not just a big PDF that you search, but actually something that will be used. But it is a big task, and I think there is so much data and information that sometimes, the most important points get lost, and the usability of who the users are gets lost. So I really commend you that you're already thinking about the different types of users. I think we need to stay very focused on what's actually helpful and not create a lot of busy work for local agencies that is not serving any purpose, except for maybe to make us feel like better about it, something. But just like staying really focused on what we're trying to accomplish with that. I also want to just second Mary Jane's comments about this is a really important tool for advocacy, not just at the state level and the federal level, but also in regions for these complex infrastructure projects that we know are really hard, to get done often. But it's important for people to understand that one little project in the context of the bigger plan. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of lot of detail, which is great and important, and we need to plan based on detail. But we also are going to need to spend time summarizing and making helpful so that we can talk to the public and talk to people that are not expert, like many people in this room, about why it matters.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Johnson? Vice President?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a random quick question on, and you don't have to go back to the slide because you'll know, but I think it was slide 13, the ecosystem and flood nexus. One of the 6 buttons is identify permitting efficiency, so building on recent advancements to accelerate implementation. I was just kind of curious, is that like forward thinking, like you're going to be looking for those things, or are you seeing some already? I was just curious what that was. It stood out to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. We know there's awful lot of work to be done there. We are seeing some. There's some programs that are out there right now that are promised to add those efficiencies to the permitting process. cutting green tape, that kind of stuff. But yeah, what we're hoping to do with the portal is to give tools. I mean, there might be some practitioners that don't know some of the other actions that have taken for some other projects and where they have realized those efficiencies and the permits that they've been able to do. And so we're going to be trying to highlight through case studies actions that have come to fruition because of the permitting. And so I think there's an awful lot there. So it's both forward-facing and also not only identifying the challenges, but the opportunities.
I think it'd be nice to have a conversation and presentation just on that. There've been an awful lot of things that are called, we're going to be efficient with our permitting.
He's here today.
We're going to be so efficient with our permitting. We have all of these things. I mean, once it was to have the regional investment strategy, well, then that wasn't. Then it was this, then it was that. And we have cutting green tape that I don't think has cut a lot of green tape. And we have an awful lot of, in my opinion, and experience and, kind of been around that a bit. It just an awful lot of, this is my job and I can't coordinate with you on this one. And we have a responsibility as a flood board. I'm saying this to the board, I'm saying this to the staff. It's not anything that we created, but it is something that we now have, and we've got to improve our permitting. And one thing that's missing in ours is that we don't have anything that is particular to restoration. Ours is all, what kind of cement are you putting in on our plan? And we'll take 4 hours to let you know. I'll stop my rant. Member Grego. Member Countryman?
Oh, just briefly, I really like the direction you're taking this. I think it's going to make everything more accessible and easier to update. And like Keely said, I just want to say I second that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Member Andrews?
Thank you very much. And I want to third that. I think the direction of providing all of the different lenses for the many users of the flood plan into accessing the data is a terrific improvement. And as someone who has personally wrestled with the massive spreadsheets, I see a lot of opportunity in shifting to an online database approach to making information more findable and understanding the complexity of the landscape in which, and I mean every aspect of landscape, not just the physical landscape, of actions more accessible to the users and therefore hopefully more effective in terms of enabling us to move forward and reduce flood risk in this wonderful state.
Thank you. I'm calmer now. Are you going to call it a Centralized Flood Protection Plan portal? Is that its name? Or are you coming up with something that doesn't sound so governmental?
Well, we're open to suggestions. We
thinking about
toyed
this.
around with, I mean, it's database, is it a dashboard? How did the modules fit in? Like, and I was told that a dashboard per se it traditionally doesn't allow input, like two-way. You're showing a dashboard of material. So we thought, okay, so it's not a CVFPP dashboard because we do want it to be interactive. So so you can take that on as an action item, President Dolan. Give us a new name.
Well, then I will take it to my favorite part of the plan and the work that we do, regional flood management entities. I know you're very proud of it, and it's near and dear to your heart. But I'm going to say that it's near and dear to the flood board from the time that it was the Centralized Flood Protection Plan, and we were given the 2012 plan. And it wasn't you or anybody that's in the audience, but we were told by someone who was standing there, just vote today and it will be over. And I think someone said, I don't think you've met Ms. Dolan. But at any rate, we had lots of meetings before we adopted it, and we had that. And what was conservation planning areas became regional flood management planning, because not everything is going to be just conservation. It's also going to be saving lives, saving property, and improving systems. And the flood board at that time, and it was more than me. I was just saying, okay, let's do it. And others really had to do it. Creating that RFMP system was not so easy. It takes money, it takes effort, it takes the locals to want to work together and to work with the state. So there's a lot of leadership that was done on those local levels, and so important. So it's kind of disappointing. Completely understandable. I get the budget. I got one at my house too. There's a lot of things you just can't do because the money's not there. But it was disappointing that it took so long to re-energize and refund the ability of the RFMPs to get moving. You are exactly right. The 2012 plan almost busted because there wasn't a lot of communication with the local agencies.
Yes.
And it's so key to do that. So that's I'm going to watch that. It's just truly needs to happen. Those are the folks that know what needs to be done, know who to talk to, and can assist us in the advocacy that needs to be done. So I just have to keep promoting that. I have a minor concern. I don't want it to get bigger, but I have a minor concern that integrating the conservation strategy, and all the conservation strategy elements of that sounds great, but to eliminate that kind of separateness and pushing up against the plan and not just being in it, I'm concerned it's going to get buried, and then we'll have to bring it back.
That is a
I'm not
valid
saying that
concern.
very eloquently, but close conversation with the Conservation Strategy Committee would be absolutely necessary.
I just had one more comment, and actually it's so funny because I was going to say it before what Madam Chair said at the end there, but this is climate action. Like, this plan is a roadmap for how we're going to manage with climate change. And so, I think a lot of people over the last 2 decades have been talking about climate and climate change and climate, but this is actually action. And this is the really hard work of looking at the infrastructure we need, planning for changing weather patterns. And so, I think and also for the impacts on species to the extent in terms of the conservation strategy. So this is climate action, and I think that people just need to really focus on that because it's important.
Thank you. Member Andrews, do you still have your hand up, or put it up again? We do want to hear from you.
My apologies. Need to lower that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. You might want to keep it open. I hope you're feeling better. Okay. We'll be communicating. And we should probably schedule these so they're not just annual. This dialogue, I think, is pretty important. So
Yes.
I'm curious of the outcome of the regional groups that you're going to have. That's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anybody in the audience want to raise their hand? Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
One, thank you for the presentation. I mean, it's fascinating. I think it's great work that you guys are doing.
Give us your name again, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Julie Gable. In listening to this, my eyes are lighting up, but then I'm like, okay, I don't know if we're thought of or included, but one of the challenges that we have, and when we spoke earlier about one of the other projects that's under review, the American River, or the ARCF Common Features Project, or the American River Common Features Project, is it always feels that we're too late. We're too late when policies are being shaped. We're too late, getting information. Some of this will help, but my comments, when we go to simplify things, sometimes we shoot ourselves in the leg. And what I do think, absolutely, you guys are much more forward, much more advanced in your thinking than I think, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And I'll say that just from the experiences that I've had. My husband is a retired civil engineer, and I think we as a species are slow and stubborn and resistant to change, but we really need to lean into it. And so there's some social element about what needs to occur in addition to enabling technologies or pieces of information or how we work more effectively together. But also from a policy perspective, it drives me crazy when I see stuff come through where we have one problem in, I think what really set the Corps off in potentially the country, but still is part of their storytelling is Hurricane Katrina. And that scared the heck out of them. And so we're still at this high rate of extremely conservative, over-engineer, which is, contrary to conservation. And so we have to get them shifted. And, we're seeing, the challenge of where we're seeing some of the information that may be coming out of one part of the Corps saying engineer with nature, don't engineer with nature is not being adopted over here. So you have that human element in it. But from the public perspective, I just ask that look for ways to think maybe even outside of the box of how we can give you input early. I love the QR code. I missed it, so I'll ask you for it afterwards. But how we can give you input early from a policy perspective, or even the factors that you're thinking about from impacts, because I think there's kind of like the traditional list, but what's not on there. And that list, as you expand it, will also expand the funding opportunities because you're trying to think creatively about what else. And that's the part that I think we really want to get input. And we don't want to be in the case, like for example, the Corps created a blanket-wide policy for vegetation on levees. And it basically said no trees, I'm oversimplifying, but no trees, no vegetation on levees across the nation. It took a court case and congressional action to get them to roll back. And that was in 2011, and it's 2014 now, and we're still waiting for that policy to come out of the Corps. And that policy, should it have come down, or that maybe we didn't even have to go to that place, that there would have been a willingness of adoption, could have improved the project that I spoke about earlier and others that are here right now. And I do appreciate, by the way, the board member Countryman for your asking, hey, we get new information, how do we get that into an ongoing project or near-term project? Because that is also an issue. I think that's part of the resistance to even the American River Common Features project from the team is they don't want to have to do more work. They've been working at this thing forever. And as bodies and people have changed, the mission is just to get the ball down the field. And we
Ms.
lose
Gable?
sight of what we're wanting.
Yeah.
So.
No, I appreciate your intensity. I do. Strain into
That's it.
another project was a
Yeah.
little difficult here.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that the work and the goals of what the board wants to see happen with
Yeah, and I second
communication and
your
work.
ideas on the conservation. Maybe it's a hybrid to
Okay.
your
Okay.
comment.
All
Thank
right,
you.
well, thank you for all the compliments as well for board members. Anyone
Thank
else? Wow. Anyone else online? No, not even Member Andrews? Okay. Mr. Williams, thank you.
Thank you very much for
You-
the opportunity.
I was going to call on you, but you want to come up and say something? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, thanks. Whew, that was great. I look forward to the next step on that. Okay, we're going to move on. Hello.
Hello.
No more Dolan fives. We're going to just move right on to item C. You're Mr. Logan?
Yes.
Okay. Justin Logan is going to present this, Delta Levies, amended funding plan,
Among other things.
among other things.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Justin Logan. I am an engineer with the Delta Levees program. I am currently acting on behalf of Sandy Maxwell, who you usually see. She is here, but she's acting for somebody else as well, higher up. So I'm giving the presentation today. Next slide.
I think this is the second time we've seen you.
Saw me a few months ago for another amended funding plan.
You're welcome to be here.
So today I am here to present to you and recommend approval for the fiscal year 23-24 estimated reimbursements. We are closing those out. Also recommend approval for the fiscal year 24-25 amended funding plan, and then recommend approval for the fiscal year 25-26 funding plan as well. Next slide. As you know, the Delta is one of the most important geographic regions in California. It's shown on the slide. And most Californians rely on something that comes through the Delta or passes through it. Next slide. The Delta is more than just a water source, a vibrant farmland or crossroads of infrastructure. The Delta provides critical habitat to species, plants, animals and birds, and fish. It is also a place where people recreate and live. For over 50 years now, the subventions program has supported LMAs in maintaining the levees and protecting the Delta. Next slide. The Delta levees have withstood daily tidal fluctuation, changing weather conditions, excess and unwanted vegetation growth, burrowing animals, trespassers, and so much more. The integrity of this levee system is critical to California and is why the subventions program is so important. The subventions program invests annually in maintenance of the Delta levees to maintain and preserve the Delta. Currently, over 70 local agencies participate in the subventions program with maintenance and rehabilitation work involving both project and non-project levees. Next slide. Currently, we are funding fiscal year 23-24. We recently came to the board for an amended funding plan of $15.5 million. We received our 71 claims, and we are currently finishing out reimbursements for $14.8 million. The local cost share for this was approximately $6.7 million. Next slide. For this one, the LMAs are currently wrapping up work for fiscal year 24-25. We are currently funded for $14 million, but are requesting an additional $2 million be approved by the board. Over the last few years, the subventions program reimbursements have been increasing, and we are anticipating the trend to continue, as you see on the graph shown. We also had emergency work on Victoria Island this year, which we anticipate having a larger than usual claim amount. For these reasons, we are asking for the additional $2 million to be approved for a full total of $16 million in program funding for fiscal year 24-25. Next slide. For fiscal year 25-26, we received 74 applications this April. This is work that the LMAs will be starting as of July 1st of this year. Final claims will then be due next November in 2026. We are proposing a funding plan for $16 million. Next slide. Because the Delta is so important to California, the board, CDFW, the LMAs, and DWR all work together through the subventions program to help fund, maintain, and protect the levees in the Delta. For the last 50 years, this annual investment has ensured the integrity of the levee system while at the same time protecting and preserving California's water supply. Next slide. DWR staff recommends the board approve the fiscal year 23-24 estimated reimbursements, the fiscal year 24-25 amended $16 million funding plan, the fiscal year 25-26 $16 million funding plan, and authorize staff to send out work agreements for the 25-26 subventions year. And that concludes my report.
I just have a comment, because I'm really intrigued by how we established a $14 million funding plan, and now we can add $2 million to it. Where does that come from?
This comes from funding allocated to the program that we kind of move around at some point. With Proposition 4 coming into play in the future years, we can allocate some of the additional funding that we've saved throughout the years, knowing that there's additional funding coming along.
Okay. No, that's a good thing. And the need here is dramatic, necessary, underfunded. So if we can keep moving that forward for this prized part of our state, then I assume we're going to do it. Are we to take action now? Because you have some more.
Correct. No.
Things. Okay. Somebody help me with what the wording actually is for the approval. You're going to help me?
Go one slide back.
This is Chris Leaf. Justin, can you put that proposed action on the screen, please? So we can hear a motion.
Just one slide back.
One slide back. We approved the 2023 estimated reimbursements. We approved the amended 24-25 to be $16 million funding plan. we approved 2025-26, $16 million funding plan. It looks like we're duplicating it. That's all right. And authorize preparation of the subventions program work agreements. Good point. Does anyone besides me want to make a comment? Kind of slipped that by. Board members? Audience? Yes, sir. Mr. Nudek.
Hi, Chris Nudek with Kelson, Sinek, and Nudek. I feel it's probably appropriate, given I'm one of the few that are here for the Delta at large. Our firm represents probably a third of the 70 reclamation districts that are involved in this program and have for the last 50-plus years. As you've heard multiple times in the past, this program is probably one of the best programs the state has. The staff, Justin and Sandy and others have been exceptional. There just isn't anything to say, but this is a great program, and it's fulfilling a substantial need in the Delta. Funding is falling out. We don't get, the bond fund was not what we anticipated it to be, and special projects and large improvement monies are not there. So the maintenance program is very critical, and that's what this affords. And we take full advantage of it, and we'll continue to. We're very happy that we did get funding in Prop 4 to continue this on, but it's a real winner. And it's not only a winner for us, it's a winner for the state, given that 85% of the water, even if the tunnels were ever to be built, still has to get funneled through the Delta. So anyway, we look forward to you approving this motion. Thank you.
And part of approving this recognizes that the local entities also provide their share.
Absolutely.
Vice President Lyons?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Justin, I just want to say thank you. Seems like Sandy's handing off the baton to you, maybe, I don't know, but I just want to say for the whole team, Sandy, thanks. Joe and I always appreciate the work you guys do, the call you have to organize everything. We all get together. It's kind of seamless, and then it makes this, very simple. And I also know, just to put out there, that I'm glad that we can find some additional funding, because I'm worried about the future and what it looks like, but we'll just kind of, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But good work on this. I love how everybody comes together. I like our Zoom call. It's all happy people in the box. And it does a lot of good. These projects are really important. So thank you. Just wanted to say that.
Appreciate the comment.
I want to acknowledge that Sandy Maxwell is here. She's been the leader, the mover, shaker, the presenter for all the years that I've been here. So thank you for your effort, too. Nice job, Mr. Logan. Is there anyone else? Any hands up? Okay. Who wants to craft the motion?
I'll go ahead and do that.
Member Griego.
I'd like to make a motion on the recommended action as stated in the staff report. I know the shortcuts.
Yeah, no, you're smart. Thank you for that. All right, there's a motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Countryman, Board Member Countryman seconds. Okay. We ready to, any more comments? Call the roll for the vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye.
Vice President Valines? Aye. President Dolan?
Yes. The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes. Andrews was called first. She was called first. It was an empty chair, but we called on her first. We go by alphabet. The motion carried unanimously. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We're just kibitzing here. You have some more.
I'm just
Is that right?
introducing the
Okay.
next item.
All right. Section 2. Mr. Logan.
If we can pull up the other presentation. We are. These were just extra slides. Justin Logan, DWR staff. I am just here to introduce KSN representatives, Chris Nudek and Eric Almas, who will be giving a briefing on the 2024 Victoria Island Emergency Response and Repair Project.
Okay, thank you for that. We're actually going to item 10D,
Correct.
as in dog.
This is related to the subventions program. We provided emergency response funding as well as an advance, and we'll be seeing a final claim that includes any other additional costs that they weren't able to acquire funding for.
Good.
Chris?
Thank you for sticking with us. I've been looking forward to this one.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Chair and members of the board. Once again, Chris Newdeck with Kelson, Sinek, and Newdeck. With me to my right, my esteemed colleague, Eric Almas, one of our associate engineers, and Liz Ramos, who was here. Oh, there she is. She's behind Eric. He's kind of a big guy. You can't see by him very easily. Is with us as well. That played a very pivotal role on this emergency. So I'm going to go through generally kind of the first actions that we took on this emergency. It's one that, let's go to the next slide. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next 2 more slides. 1 more. There we go. So just to give everyone a quick understanding of where Victoria Island is. Victoria Island is in the West Delta. Highway 4 bisects it. It sits right above the Clifton Court 4 Bay, which is generally, just west of Discovery Bay. Next slide. One of the important aspects of Victoria is it's got a lot of features on it. Predominantly State Route 4. Those that are traveling through the Delta know there's 2 east-west corridors, 4 and 12. 4 has become a very important corridor given the navigation program called Waze, in the sense that it peels off of 205 and 580, and they tend to run through the Delta off of that. In addition to that, there's a number of other elements. One, that there's an intake for Contra Costa Water District's Los Vaqueros Reservoir and water system. There's what's known as a tank, which is the Transmission Agency of Northern California high voltage transmission line running through there. It also sits directly above both the State Water and Central Valley Project pumping plants. So any adversity to having an island flood is going to have a substantial impact on those 2 intakes and maybe potentially shut those intakes down for a period of time. And I'll speak to that as time goes on. Next slide. All right, this gives you, let's go ahead, next slide. This gives you a quick appreciation of the timeline of this emergency. So this came to me personally as the district's engineer, a call from the district superintendent on the morning of the 21st, and it came in as a call. I hit a button, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back. No more had I hit that button, and a text came across, 911. That's all I got. So I picked up gathered my goods and ran out of this meeting and called the individual. And Jim Jerkovich, who's the superintendent of Reclamation District 2040, says, "We're failing." I said, we're in the middle of October. How can you be failing? He says, "We're failing. We have a hole in the levee. It's collapsed. I need your help." Take a deep breath. You get in your car and you start running towards that. Well, the whole 15, 20 minutes on the way out, I'm dispatching equipment, material, men, starting an emergency response plan. Eric, Liz, all these people are starting to work towards getting equipment. I don't know what it looks like yet. Let's go ahead and, so this quick summary tells you that we worked on it for basically 2 days. Then we went into what's known as a technical response because we had not completed the work, and put together a technical response in the sense that we actually did geotechnical engineering post this initial repair. And then ultimately, we've got assistance through the Department of Water Resources in the final repair, and those repairs were finished by January. Next slide. So here's the initial incident. Next slide. This is what I saw when I showed up on site. So this is levee, what it looked exactly like when I walked on, and it was collapsed. And the interesting part of this whole scenario was, I said, "How did this happen?" He says, so I think I've talked before, these reclamation districts now, since probably, I would say 87, 88 timeframe, they get daily inspections. And that's the critical nature of these reclamation districts now. We really are on top of looking at any potential failure modes. So the inspection went by about 7 o'clock that morning and everything was fine. The guy returns at 9:15, this is what he sees. He sees this collapsed levee and a hole that's pumping out 6,000 gallons a minute, which is a lot of water coming through the levee. So I walk out on this landscape, and the two owners are standing there, and they say, well, what do we do? How much time do we have? And I don't know where I came up with this concept, but I said, it's a 10-10 situation. They said, what's 10-10? I said, either you have 10 seconds, and this levee's going to fail, or you have 10 hours. And they said, what's the difference? I said, if it's coming through the levee, it's failing in 10 seconds, literally. If it's coming underneath the levee, we probably have 10 hours. They said, how do you know? I said, well, I've been doing this for 43 years. I've been on some levees that have failed literally in 10 seconds. The last big one was Jones Track. We had this exact same situation, and within about probably a minute, it collapsed and failed. They said, that's not a good situation, but I said, let's get off the levee. So we walked back, and that was the first thing that I did was smart. And we stood there, and we started mobilizing equipment. Next slide. So this is a little bit more close-up. I mean, you can see it. This is the boiling of the water. This is kind of the video of what was going on. It was washing sand through, but you didn't really know what the condition was. This is where we finally, we had equipment there relatively quickly, but these cracks are 5-10 feet deep. There I was in my slacks and my dress shoes that I was in for the next 36 hours. I never even got dressed to the flood fight. But bottom line was, what we were starting to do was move material into the site, thinking if it was collapsing that we were going to take material off our adjoining levees and try and substantiate that. But we needed to slow that water down. So let's go to the next slide. So here we are, and this is probably, I call it 8 or 9, 10 o'clock at night. And what we have in the below where it says initial response, and I think we can go to the next slide, and it might be a little bit more clear. What we were going to do is core the levee, and the soil bentonite is what's in those bags. Procedurally, this is what you see in a batch plant when we do the deep slurry trenching throughout California in the levee systems. This is the same product, but it's in a 70-pound, concrete bag. And there's two different methods. One's a whole plug, one's a gel. And we had a procedure for what we were mixing in there, and you can see it in the white there to the left. It's basically a white, very highly expansive clay. And we went down 25 feet. Thought we're going to hit this thing. This water's flowing through here so fast. We saw trickles in this trench. And I'm sitting there going, all right, this is not a good sign. So we did this literally for about 250 feet of the levee and never, ever found anything. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I finally sat down on what was remaining of that pile of hole plug and said, we failed. We haven't done squat. This levee is still pouring water through it, and we haven't made any headway. So the only thing that we had going for us at that point was we had dispatched Dutra Construction to move in. Now, oddly as it sounds, Dutra just picked up from where they were. They were on a core project up in Sacramento and were moving our direction. I said, what do you have for material? They were stripping quarry stone riprap and soil off a levee. And they had 2 barges of it. They said, do you want it? I said, if it's dirt and rock, I'll take whatever you have. So what they did is they moved in. They moved in about 3:30 in the morning. We set up, and we blanketed the waterside slope about 3 to 4 foot deep. That was the ticket. That's where it slowed down. And the reason we knew that was an alternative, we could actually see whirlpools out in the channel itself where water was getting drawn down into the levee. Really one of the first times I've ever seen it. It was awe-inspiring to see that, to think that we had that big a leak. Now, mind you, that levee district's been there for 150 years. It was the island that was given to the dredgermen that built Union Island. General Williams had the dredgermen that was going around Union Island go around it enough times that they have 14 feet of freeboard on Union Island. He says, I'll give you Victoria. And that's when they cut off Victoria. But it has been dry since that point. There's never been heavy seepage on this. And all of a sudden, overnight, we've got this substantial seepage through there. Let's go to the next slide. What we started and what Eric's going to continue on was we thought, well, let's do the traditional means and methods for trying to contain what would otherwise be a substantial boil. So we started with what's known as levee seal. It's a byproduct of the quarry. It's got a lot of clay and small rock in it. And we were going to put a ring levee around the land side, But the water was moving so fast, we weren't able to close it. So we started it, and you can see the formation of the initial ring. Next slide. Here, Dutra moves in. This is about 3:30 in the morning. Still haven't slept yet. Next slide. And this was after the blanket was placed, which was placed from about, I think 3:30 in the morning till probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we closed the berm, put a pipe in it, and it slowed it down tremendously. Next slide. At this point, you take over, right? So this is what the seepage berm looks like at the end of our initial contract with Dutra. And what Dutra brought in was enough material to reconstruct the levee as best we could and place rock where the rock had been disturbed with we did our core trenching on the waterside slope. Just with the anticipation, we needed to get the levee back to what we thought was more formable to its pre-flood condition before we move to the next step. Next slide. Okay, this is where Eric takes over. All right.
So you can go to the next slide. So
Please give us your name again.
oh, sorry, Eric Almus with Kelson, Seneca, Nudek.
Yes, thank you.
So once we had that, initial blanket put on the water side, slowed things down dramatically, people could take a sigh of relief and maybe take a nap. Moved on to the next phase of trying to understand, identify the limits, scope, extents, characteristics of what seepage path is there that exists that is pulling this much water through. So on behalf of the Reclamation District, geotechnical firm NGO, came out, I forget which day, it was maybe a day or two later. They came out and did 7 CPT tests, cone penetration tests. And what those did was they identified a rather substantial sand lens that, let's see, go to the next slide. Oh, there it goes. That's what I was looking for.
Take a look at that number there, 26 feet.
Yeah, so here's, what they found was a seepage layer that was 6 foot thick, that the top of it was about 26 feet. So just barely underneath, the 25 feeder that we were trying to dig through with the core trench.
That close.
That close. So, so what we were finding with the CPTs was very loose, low density material, in some cases, very little resistance to where it was, essentially voids underneath the levee. And so again, this was about a 6 foot thick blanket of sandy, loose sand and voids. Probably about, we figured about 400 feet long. Next. We did some of the other ones further to the kind of southwest, had a similar 6 foot thick blanket, but it was deeper, and it was away from where we were having the major seepage. Next. So what we did, NGO, taking into account the CPT data and their understanding of the seepage lens, they developed 2 alternatives for coming up with some preliminary design recommendations. So alternative 1 was a seepage berm. You go next. So they were looking at a 300 foot wide out in the field, 7 foot thick blanket of earthen material, 1,200 foot long, and of course that's a lot of material. So as you can imagine, construction time would be long, costs would be enormous, and at the end of the day, the bang for the buck just wasn't there. As you can see there, hoping to get less than 0.5 of an exit gradient, and the best we could do with this seepage berm was get down to 0.7. And so 0.5 is kind of this Army Corps and other standard for exit gradient for seepage. So next one. So alternative 2 was a cutoff wall. basically with steel sheet piles. We knew we had some availability fairly nearby of either 40 to 50 foot sheet piles. So their alternative was to 600 foot long cutoff wall with steel sheet piles, 40 foot deep. Obviously, it would in and out a lot quicker at a substantially less cost, and it was going to prove more effective in terms of actually mitigating the seepage. You can see the exit grading was down to less than 0.1. Next. So it was actually kind of a pretty easy evaluation of the two alternatives. So the district's ultimate, preferred alternative was the cutoff wall. For kind of all the reasons I kind of went over already. Shorter construction time, much cheaper. Actually does cuts off the hydraulic connection from the river to the land side, let's see, it would be done in a much quicker time frame and be more effective. Next. Yeah.
Okay, one thing too to note was, so what that technical response was doing was setting up the next phase. Reclamation District 2040 had already spent about 1.2 million of its funds, which they didn't have. They literally were already into the bank from a prior slip that occurred on the north side, and they were stressed. So we put together that technical response and started coordinating with agencies. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the NIMS-SIMS process, which you've heard about, the National Incident Management System and Standard Emergency Management System, which is the state side. So as we talked about, the event started on the 21st. We submitted a request for technical assistance on the 25th. So we'd already started to do this technical response, so we wanted to start ramping it up. The county was not in a position to fund anything. The county on the 30th proclaimed a local emergency, and then we started working with our state partners. Now, the first and foremost was Caltrans, and Caltrans was very interested in the sense that they did not want to shut down State Route 4. But most importantly, we were working with the Department of Water Resources. We had a number of meetings with them, one of which, interestingly enough, and this is kind of important for the overall response, my brother Randall Nudek, who works with Metropolitan Water District, of course, called me within 15 minutes of the event occurring initially. He found out, and they're very concerned from the Metropolitan's perspective that if Victoria were to go down, that they felt there would be a major impact to the state and federal pumps. So when we went to the state with our technical response that Eric was speaking to, we asked that they model that. Well, when we had our conversation with the state, the model that was run by RMA for both the state and for Met was conflicting. Metropolitan said a minimum of 60 to 90 days, correct? So Metropolitan said pumps shut down, minimum 60 to 90 days. The state said no impact. So we're kind of at an impasse. I said, well, how do you get the same modeling entity with two grossly different models? But nevertheless, we continue down the path, continue to ramp up our interest in saying this is something that's very important for all the reasons I mentioned earlier with all the public facilities and the fact that we were not, the leak was still continuing. It had been substantially slowed down, but we were on 24-hour watch. KSN had its inspectors out there from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then the local reclamation district had its people there because we didn't know if that blanket on the water side was going to open up again, why that sand lens ever exposed itself in the first place. There's a number of reasons and causes, but we didn't know if it was going to happen again. Next slide. This is a little part of the NIMS and SIMS process. We can flip through this. Next slide. We did notify California Department of Fish and Wildlife. That's one of the requirements. We did it after the fact with the U.S. Army Corps and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Our error, if we do one of these again, which I'm sure we will in the next decade, hopefully, not, but But it seems like these things tend to kind of float around in about a 10-year increment. But that would have been one that we notified initially, because the after the fact is a much more difficult process. Next slide. So what happened? Well, November 2nd, the Department of Water Resources stepped up to the plate and agreed to move to the next phase of construction. I'll let Eric tell you about that.
So, like Chris said, up to this point, the blanket was there, dramatically slowing down the seepage, but everyone was still on high alert, 24-hour monitoring. Next slide. So, on November 2nd, DWR approved technical and direct assistance, which was greatly appreciated. They basically performed some supplementary geotechnical explorations. You can go to the next slide. So they did 6 additional CPTs, supplemental ones, and they basically were obviously finding similar results. Next page. So their design was essentially a hybrid of the 2 alternatives that the district had proposed. Instead of just an either or, it was a combination of both. So they had a steel sheet pile cutoff wall that was essentially 300 feet long along at the crown of the levee, and they also had a 600-foot long seepage berm, obviously much smaller than the 300-foot wide one that was one of the district's alternatives. So it was like, again, it was a hybrid alternative. Next. So the cutoff wall is there in the green, basically 300-foot long, 40 feet deep. Seepage berm was 600-foot long, about 62 feet wide. And DWR had, through their procurement process, secured a bid for $1.3 million. Next. So the DWR, their contractor, performed the cutoff wall first, which we were, as the local agency, were happy to see that, since we thought that would be the more critical and effective portion of the fix. So they completed that cutoff wall on December 5th. It was about that, I think it was, once that was in, was when we basically came off the 24-hour monitoring. The trickle disappeared even further. So we felt a lot better after the cutoff wall was in and we ceased 24-hour monitoring. Next one. And then about a month later, there's the new 600-foot long land site seepage berm that was constructed. Next slide. That was it. And so, it was scary, but it was a very cooperative effort. Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention was that there's a lot of, I would think, follow-on work to figure out why this ever occurred. But it happens to be right in the bend of an old bend of Old River. And we know that those rivers would meander back and forth. And this levee was probably built right on an old sand lens and never, ever exposed. The cut that goes to the east, Victoria Canal Cut, which is where Contra Costa Water District has its intake, is right at the start of this. But this was actually in a bend. Now, one interesting fact, well, first of all, hats off to the Department of Water Resources for stepping up. This was an extraordinary effort. We would not be in the position and would probably not be standing here. We'd still be out there monitoring. But that was a very, very critical move from our perspective as well as theirs. But one of the things that came about was everyone's throwing, baseballs at us trying to figure this out. Well, our general counsel happens to be Dante Nomalini, and he starts his research the day this happens. He goes back and looks at one of the western alignments for the tunnels, and it ran right over the top of this. And he says, well, guess what they're doing? They're doing borings on those tunnels, and one of them was in the water. Well, while we were out there filling this blanket, which was about 50 feet wide, 350 feet, 50 feet off the levee, 350 feet, that we found a hole. Now, the hole was based on something that the superintendent from Dutra Construction found on his fishing app, but there was literally a hole out there. And of course, Dante's standing there when this gentleman's saying it. He goes, "That's it. That boring was never backfilled. That was the connectivity to that deeper sand lens. That may have caused it." And I said, well, we're not at a point where we're going back at waterside borings, but it's something to think about. How do you backfill a boring in the water? It's very difficult. You have to tremie the backfill down to the bottom and tremie back up. That's the only suspect that we have at this point. But nevertheless, it's fixed. It's solidly fixed. From the department's perspective, it's a temporary measure, but we are gladly thankful for it. We are going to be doing a joint presentation with them at the FMA conference. So this will be amped up a little bit and present it there as well. But thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to present this emergency.
Thank you for presenting it. It's amazing. I'm still kind of absorbing you, and that was it.
That's it. Go back to work.
Wow. Well, it certainly reminds us all that we don't know what's going to happen or why or when, and just have to be.
You never can predict. Everyone
gotta
says, well,
show
did you
up.
predict it? And I said, you can't predict these. I mean, the spots that are problematic on the islands, you work on. You work on diligently.
Yeah.
And then something like this happens on one of your best sections of levee, and you go, oh my goodness. So if we had more money, we'd do much more significant investigation, but we don't have that.
You really said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah, I did. I said, oh my goodness.
Some form there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks,
For the chair.
Member Bosler.
Yeah, could you, I just have one question and a comment, but do the question first. Can you restate, I didn't completely get where MWD and DWR had very different opinions. Can you just
Yeah,
recap that?
it was interesting, Member Boswell. We both asked, well, we didn't ask the department because we weren't sure how they were going to prepare for this technical diatribe that we had over the phone. But my brother, Randall, said, I want to model if Victoria were to flood because of the impact of the inrush of salinity and so forth and the potential for just the contamination that occurs when an island floods. You know, if you know it's going to flood, you'll start to evacuate your fuel tanks and things of that nature. But there's a lot of things on a farming practice that will contaminate floodwater. So you have to be worried when you're right upstream of the state water project and somewhat upstream of the federal water project. So that was their model. So RMA modeled whatever their inputs were. I don't know, but that's what they came back with. And they were sound. Dennis Majors, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard of Dennis Majors before. Dennis was the one in charge of that. So I called him as soon as the call was over. And he goes, Chris, I don't understand why we're that far. Typically, we're closer at, our model inputs. So we never pushed it. I wasn't paying for the modeling, so I didn't know whether they went back to RMA and said, why were we that much different? I'm sure they did, but I haven't found out what that result was. All right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just glad there was only one of these happening. I mean, I think the wake-up call here, and just like Jones Track, which was on a sunny day, is that we have very, very fragile levee system that was never really I mean, it was built on sand berms, like you said.
Right.
So, I think the worry is, what if 3 or 4, I think that the people in LA never thought there would be that many fires this January, that they'd have to all fight at once. And so it's kind of hard to imagine how, we would be able to deal with 3 or 4 of those at the same time, right? So, I mean, I just think it really underscores the vulnerability that we have in the Delta with the set of levees and all the important, like you said, all the important infrastructure that is critical to not just the northern part of the state, but the southern part of the state as well.
Yeah, one of the key elements, too, that we didn't really focus on was the emergency response. We've done so much emergency response planning in the Delta, in the Valley in total. That was really key to the success of this. I mean, Liz is our chieftain in development of these plans, and It was a seamless operation. The county stepped up. They had a special board of supervisors meeting to do the emergency declaration. The night of, we could not get off-road permits to bring equipment out. We called the High Patrol, and literally within a half an hour, we had an escort, and we drove the loaders right down State Highway 4 because they had 2 bridges shut down for nighttime maintenance. And you couldn't get a wide load across them, but you could get a piece of equipment across them. So these guys showed up in these loaders, and they're grinning, out to here, go, we got to drive a loader right down the middle of Highway 4 at like 50 miles an hour with 2 High Patrol behind us. They just cleared
Not pulling us over.
Yeah, not pulling us over, and they had cleared the freeway. So that emergency response element in the NIMS and SIMS process is seamless if you do it right, and it worked very well. And the state stepped up, and they questioned us on a number of times. Did you go through the process? Did you do the procedure? Did you get the emergency declaration? Did you do your own emergency? All that worked together. The only thing we were late on was the notification to the Corps, and I'll take responsibility for that. It's hard when you're out in the middle of the fire, but we won't do it again. It'll never be that way again. We will know who to notify off the bat. So, but thank you.
Are you going to write a book?
I've still got a few more years before I retire. No, I'm not going to write a book.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to work with Gilbert on a book. How's that?
yeah, put all that together, put all the photos together, just
Yeah.
remind people, you gotta, things will happen and you gotta act.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. The constant patrol, the immediate reaction, the amount of mutual aid. We had 6 reclamation districts worth of people out there. We had tractors, trucks, dozers. I mean, it's amazing what people, they know when they hear the call for order came out. We had more landowner equipment than we had contractor equipment for the first probably 12 hours.
Yeah, that would make sense. There we
Mr.
go.
Nomalini was using his is the first dozer there.
Okay, yeah, well, they're all showing up saying, thank goodness
Yeah.
it's not me.
Of course, his dozer doesn't go in reverse.
Doesn't go in reverse, yeah.
Oh.
If you ever talk to Mr. Nomalini, tell him to get a dozer that goes in reverse.
I'm not gonna tell him what to do.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks, gentlemen. Any more, yeah, okay, we got a wow. Any more comments here? Okay. Anyone in the audience want to say wow? Tom? What's his last name?
I'll be brief.
Mr. Slater.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom
Say what
Slater,
you want.
RD 999, or the Flood Control Association, as well as a commissioner on the Delta Protection Commission, so we follow things like this very closely as well.
Yes, you do.
Not in an authoritarian way, but that's what we're there for. 2040 is very lucky to have these guys. You can't replace experience like that and intelligence, and that's what made that work so quickly. But I also wanted to catch something on the subvention comments earlier, if I can, real briefly. And that is that, of course, we're happy with the commitment to the 16 million. We have a lot of misinformation on what the bond meant in terms of if there's 150 million dedicated to levy, however they phrased it, subvention money. Does that mean for 10 years, or we could really use a specific time? Do we have levy subvention money in 2029? We think we do, but do we? You know how we can move, and it's not a form of criticism. We're in deep financial trouble, all these RDs, as are a lot of agricultural industries. I think the bankers are going to start saying, when we renew these lines of credit, what are we renewing them on? Well, there's funding. Where does it say that in 3 years? We think it's there. We know what the bond said, 150 million. Is that the normal 10-year, 15 million a year? Is there a way to define that now so that we know 5 years out in a more formal way when we go to the legislators or people like that? So along those lines, we know we got it for 25, 26. Is that the first year of the 150 million commitment? I don't know if anyone can answer it.
We can't.
But we hear it's funded. So and I'm not criticizing that, what do we go back to our 90 RDs that are in the Delta, 70 which are using the, we need to tell them something. Well, if DWR tells us something, not meaning to be deceiving, we expect that to be true in 5 years. I'm old enough to know, I guarantee it's not, you can't count on it, and it's nobody's fault. Is there a way to fix that so that we can start talking to these lenders? They renew these lines of credit largely on past history, like all banks, but the regulators are changing the rules, and they're more difficult all the time. I suspect it's going to be a major problem. If there's a way that the board can help us get that information to be accurate outside of a general fund obligation, which is where I think it should come from.
All right, well, you made that statement, so it's on our radar, so.
Thank you for
Who knows?
the opportunity.
I would love to take care of that, but they haven't given me a magic wand yet.
I'll give you one. Go ahead and take care of it.
I only have one in my own house.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, someone was raising their hand. No, they're just grunting. Okay, anyone online? Okay, then we are approaching the ending activities of today's board meeting. We're on number 11, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Item number 11 is the staff activity reports. These are written updates regarding the activities that board staff has done in the last month. The executive and administrative division report arrived this morning. The operations branch, flood system improvement branch, you wrote something up and you did a great job presenting it. Thank you. So each one of you will be doing that as well. Natural Resources Management and Planning Division, longest name possible. Someone's smiling, get ready. And the Executive Officer Delegated Permit Report, which I really appreciate that you put on there and describe what each one of them are. And there were two there that I know people had been calling saying, when's it going to be done? And I say, go look, it's being done. Board comments and upcoming committees. Bosler? Johnson? Countryman? Grego?
Yeah, just want to,
Member Grego?
yeah, just want to say that I will not be here for the July meeting. Unfortunately, I have a vacation waiting for me.
Unfortunately, that you're taking a vacation. Okay.
Depends on who you are.
So which board meeting are you missing?
July.
Oh, July. Well, there's two in July. No, it's one in July. Oh, well, you can log on.
Pardon me?
Okay, we'll see. Member Blind, any updates? No. Okay. I don't have any. Someone did my, all my photos, so now you know what I was up to. Greg. Upcoming meetings. The board will meet July 18th. That is a different date than the fourth date because the fourth Friday is the move, transition of colonels for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So that provides us the opportunity to meet and to attend, which is a good thing. Coordinating committee will meet on July 22nd. The meetings are held in person at West Sacramento City Hall, but there is an online access as well. But in person is always encouraged. We will have a board workshop on August 8th, somewhere in this building. Here. And a board meeting August 22nd. Here. Okay, that's what we think. We'll see. Okay, no closed session. Anything else to be done? Can I adjourn? Meeting adjourned.